Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the 207th annual meeting of the town of Bristol. We'll begin with our pledge, and I'd ask Paul Manganello if he'd lead us in the pledge today. To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. If you just remain standing for a second, we'll have just a brief invocation. The Bible tells us that to everything there is a season, a time for every purpose under heaven. It is not surprising that our ancestors chose this time of year to hold town meeting. The farmers were experiencing the end of their winter supplies. The woodshed was getting low, and they were down to eating the remnants of what food they may have stored or preserved in preparation for the long, cold, dark days. But now, the winter was beginning to lose its grip. The sun was rising higher in the sky, and there were new signs of life. Trees were starting to form their buds. The pussy willows were blooming. The sap was running through the veins of the maples, and little green shoots might be seen protruding from the ground in those expanding bare spots. This is a season of optimism, a season of growth, a season of new beginnings. For our ancestors, with the winter being at an end, it was a time to plan for the warmer days, to prepare for planting, to decide where to put one's labor and how to manage their resources. And in those early days, town meeting brought the community together to provide, maintain, and support common services that would enhance the needs of all. While there must have been some disagreements over priorities and how money should be spent, I am quite sure that the spirit of the season must have filled their hearts of the citizens at those early meetings with goodwill. Times have changed, but today we meet here just as our ancestors did, to assess our needs and to decide how best to maintain and support them. May we undertake our duties thoughtfully and with careful deliberation. May we be respectful of others regardless of our differences, showing compassion and making fairness our goal. May our words be heard and our feelings felt. May we kindly hear the voices of others just as we want ours to be heard. While we may have our personal interests, may we act for the benefit of the community as a whole. When our work is complete today, may we be at peace, knowing that we have made our best effort to carry out our task wisely and justly. In any event, like our ancestors, as we meet here today, may the spirit of the season fill our hearts with goodwill. For this we hope, aspire, and pray. Amen.
Amen. Hear, hear.
We begin as usual with introductions, and we'll begin by introducing the table to my right. Go ahead, Cheryl.
Cheryl Herbert, Town Clerk, Tax Collector. Christina Goodwin, Town Administrator.
Rob Blassett, Select Board. John Hughes, Select Board.
John Miller, Select Board. Scott Milbrand, Select Board. Scott Sanchez, Select Board.
And to my left, the Budget Committee.
Paul Regan, Budget Committee.
Sue Sedano, Budget Committee. Les Diamond, Budget Committee.
Brian Gallagher, Budget Committee.
Buzz Kenny, Budget Committee. Drew Bursey, Budget Committee.
We also have in attendance our Town Council, Sean Tangway, here today. And did someone want to introduce the department heads?
Good morning, everyone. Here we have Joanne Bailey, our Assessing and Land Use Manager. Beach Supervisor Deb Tivy is not with us this morning. Fire Chief Ben LaRoche. Highway Superintendent Victor Greenwood. Minot Sleeper Librarian Patricia Hayward. Patricia, are you here? I don't see her. Okay. Police Chief Christopher Bean over in the corner. Town Clerk Tax Collector Cheryl Herbert. Our Transfer Station Superintendent Chuck Cullen. And Water and Sewer Superintendent Jeff Chartier up in the back. And also Town Administrator Christina Goodwin. So I almost forgot Christina. So. Okay. Oh, I thought we were reading the town report. Okay. My apologies. I thought we were actually reading the town report dedication. So for those of you that haven't seen it and haven't read it in your town report already, this year's Bristol town report is dedicated in honor of Carol Brown. Carol, could you please stand up? Yes, if you want to.
Give it to me.
So for those of you that don't know Carol, Carol's had a long history as a town resident and done a lot of work in the community with the not only being on the select board for a few years, but also served on the conservation committee for many years. And Carol is going to be moving out of town this year and heading west, but hopefully he'll be back to visit us soon. So a big thank you to Carol.
Okay, so we'll just talk about the rules of the meeting, as we usually do. First of all, those people who are permitted to participate in the meeting today are registered voters in the town of Bristol. If you are not a registered voter, you do not have authority to speak or to vote here today. Are there any non-residents in attendance? Just raise your hand. Okay, as we say, we don't want to see your lips move today, okay? We do, generally, as a matter of practice, we do allow any department heads who may not be residents of Bristol to speak, unless there's some objection to that by the body. With regard to the warrant articles, we're going to go through the articles in order, just as they appear on the warrant. We'll take a motion to approve it and a second. And then we'll give the person who has made the motion the first opportunity to speak to the motion. After that's done, we will open it up to questions and comments. If you do have a question or comment, we ask you to come to the microphone so your voice can be recorded, and as we will be recording everything which takes place here today. When you do come to the microphone to speak, make sure you identify yourself and what street that you may live on, so that people will know that in fact you are a resident and who you may be. All comments or questions should be directed to the moderator. If you have a question, you're not to ask somebody else in attendance. Ask the moderator and we will find an answer for you. We'll find the right person to answer the question for you. Make sure you speak loudly enough for people to hear. If you have amendments today, the amendments must be in writing. So if you want to amend one of the articles, make sure the amendment is in writing. The other thing you need to know, under Robert's Rules of Order, parliamentary procedure, you can't speak and then make the amendment after you speak. You need to make your amendment first, and then you can address your amendment. Your amendment must be seconded. Of course, it goes without saying, you need to be polite here today, no profanity, keep comments relevant to the subject, and be succinct. We always say that the best speech is one that's a 3-minute speech, short, to the point, like the Gettysburg Address. And when it comes to voting today, we try to take our votes. There's one ballot vote we have to take today, but for the most part, we'll try to discern voice votes. And if I can't determine the yeses from the noes, the ayes from the nays, then we'll have a show of hands. If a ballot is needed or is requested, and there's a sufficient number of people who want to have a ballot vote, we'll have a ballot vote. As a matter of practice, I always vote with the body, with everybody else. I don't vote at the end to either break a tie or to make a tie. And the role of the moderator is to be fair and efficient when you leave here today. That's what we hope you'll believe. And what you need to know is I make mistakes every once in a while and screw up. And when I do, I can be overruled. And so the body has that opportunity anytime. If you think I've done something wrong, please let me know so it can be fixed. And with that, we will begin our business today. And if you look at your warrant, our first article today that we'll be addressing is Article 12. Everybody had the opportunity to vote on the first 11 articles on Election Day last Tuesday. And hopefully you've been able to see the results of your voting. First article, Article 12, to see if the town will vote to allow the operation of social districts within the town of Bristol. Ballot vote required. And is there a motion?
Mr. Moderator, I move Article 12 as written.
Moved by Selectman Glassett, and is there a second?
Second.
Who was the second down? Don Milbrand seconded that. Okay. And would you like to address your motion?
Good morning again. So this year, the legislature in Concord passed a law which allows local entities such as the town of Bristol to adopt a social district regulation, which would allow the town to allow certain areas of the town to allow individuals 21 years and over to consume alcohol in certain areas of the town. So in working with the rest of the board with this and in discussions we've had with local business owners, we feel this could be a benefit, particularly in the downtown area where there's multiple businesses that do serve alcohol, and this would allow them, those that have limited seating, to allow folks to be able to leave the facility and go out into the town square area and enjoy a beverage. So basically what you're voting on here is not specifically for the individual social districts, but what a yes vote on this article would mean that you're allowing the board to explore this option, and you're giving them the ability to create one of these social districts. There's two areas in town which we've considered, as I mentioned before, the town square area, and also potentially up at the lake. In the past, there's been some events on the town common, on the common area, with whether they be music events, that sort of thing. This would allow people to be able to move freely and go from business to business. There would be quite a bit of regulation on the town's part with this, as far as where folks are able to go and where and how alcohol would be able to be consumed. The idea of this is not for people to be able to just freely go to the convenience store and pick up a 12-pack and go sit in the common. This would be regulated strictly to beverages purchased at local businesses in designated containers. So it wouldn't be a free-for-all, in other words. So thank you.
Yes, Mr. Caldwell.
Tom Caldwell, Summer Street. I'd like to propose an amendment to this article.
Okay. What is your amendment?
The article is to see if the voters want to pursue the idea of establishing public drinking areas known as social districts within the town of Bristol, and ask the town to develop an implementation plan that satisfies the conditions laid out in sections 178, 33 to 38 of New Hampshire's liquor laws, and further, ask that the select board present fully developed plans at the 2027 town meeting to allow voters to make a decision on whether to allow the operation of social districts within the town of Bristol.
Okay. Is there a second to that? Who is that? I guess Paul, we'll say Paul Megan. I'm going to try to get as many people in the minutes as I can today. So, I think Susan Duncan seconded it, so I'm going to give her put that in the minutes. Okay, would you like to address your amendment?
I would. Asking voters to approve social districts now without knowing how they would be implemented is asking too much. It is perfectly reasonable for town officials to want to know that there is public support for social districts before going to all the work necessary to meet the state's requirements. This amendment would show that support without committing the town to a concept that is new and untested in any New Hampshire community. There are plenty of reasons to support social districts, promoting local businesses that dispense alcohol, providing a chance for people to get together, to share a drink, and expanding community festival offerings. But there are too many unanswered questions. What will it cost to provide the police presence necessary to monitor the social districts for compliance and make sure the drinking does not lead to other problems? Would the town be pulling officers away from normal public safety responsibilities? Would there be season-long adoption, multiple days of adoption, or single event approval? Will the presence of alcohol lead to loud, boisterous conversations that occur at any indoor bar? Will the noise be a nuisance to others in the area? Will it lead to behavior that would prove detrimental to other businesses? Who is responsible for paying for the logo that, in quotes, that is unique to social district in which it will be consumed, as required by the law? Who purchases the specially designed containers that are necessary? Who is responsible for paying, What will be the cost of creating a detailed map of the social district and the signs delineating the areas? What is the cost of collecting and disposing of the trash and cleaning up the area after the event? The legislation makes no provision for the town to charge a fee to the liquor establishments that profit from the social district, so there is no cost recovery for town expenditures. Our moderator persuaded the New Hampshire legislature to adopt a law allocating a percentage of liquor commission profits to alcohol abuse prevention and education. But the legislature has diverted or underfunded the alcohol fund since its inception. That callous disregard for the consequences of promoting alcohol is reflected in the social district legislation. Before adopting it in Bristol, we should know what we are getting.
Thank you. Okay, we're now addressing the amendment, and the amendment is to see if the voters want to pursue the idea of establishing public drinking areas known as social districts within the town of Bristol and ask the town to develop an implementation plan that satisfies the conditions laid out in section 178, 33 through 38 of the New Hampshire liquor laws, and further ask the select board to present fully developed plans at the 2027 town meeting to allow voters to make a decision on whether to allow the operation of social districts within the town of Bristol. So that's what we're discussing right now.
Could we have counsel speak to whether it's legal or not?
Yeah.
The amendment?
Yep. That might be.
Unfortunately, I have to conclude that I don't believe that the amendment is legal based upon the statute under RSA 178:34. In that, the statute under Roman numeral 1C, the statute says the wording of the question shall be substantially as follows. Quote, shall we allow the operation of social districts within the city or within the town or city, end quote. So, I mean, you have some, town meeting has some ability to amend it, but I don't think you can amend it to the extent that is indicated because it doesn't follow the statutory language as provided by, it doesn't follow the statutory language of the question as provided by the legislature.
I guess just a follow-up question. So if we were to adopt the amendment, if the body were to adopt the amendment today, would that mean that neither the amendment nor the original language would be adopted?
I think that's true. If the amendment were to pass, I think it's subject to legal challenge and it would likely be struck down by the court as being an illegal amendment. So you wouldn't have adopted the amendment and you would not have adopted the social district as provided by in the statute.
I'm just going to call Bill first. Mr. Nyman.
Bill Neiman. The question has to do with both the amendment and the article. If the amendment is passed, or if the article is passed, I assume that means that the businesses that are already serving outside, let me rephrase it. if these are voted down, does that mean that the several businesses that serve liquor outside now will no longer be allowed to do so? Is that clear?
They'll still be allowed.
Hey, hold on.
Under current statute.
Yeah.
I'm sorry?
Hold on. He asked a question. I'll call on you to answer it.
I'm sorry. I was out of order. I'm out of order.
Okay. Selectman Milburn, would you like to answer that question?
Now that we're in proper order, the establishments would still be able to do the outdoor seating in the confined area that they are now.
Okay,
This-
thank you.
This would not change that.
And now would you like to speak?
Yes, please. Don Milbrand, Hemp Hill Road, and Select Board. I'm speaking just on both, I guess, right now. I understand the sentiment of the amendment, and quite frankly, I agree with it, because what the original article states is you're giving the Select Board all the power to define these and enact them without any further input here. And this amendment, as I understand, you'd actually like to vote on the proposed social district. Like I said, I do support that, but as council has said, doing it this way will negate everything. It would just make a no vote for this if you pass this amendment. So I would say vote no to the amendment, and actually what I would like to see would be the legislature in Concord amend the RSA 178 so that rather than just giving carte blanche power to the select board to create these, that if they'd change the language that the select board would create it and then it would come to town meeting to vote on the actual details of it. Voting on something without any details, I get it. Vote your conscience both on the amendment and the article. Thank you.
Other questions or comments? Selectman Legoux.
Didn't know if you saw me. Thank you. Excuse me. Couple things worth noting. Again, I would also agree with Don in terms of the process, and it would have been a better process. And I have no disagreement with the amendment, other than it may not be legally binding. I will tell you this, and I think Don would agree with me, and I think the remaining of the select board would agree with me, that we are not going to implement anything without public input. In fact, it's required under the new law. We have to have public meetings. We have to have hearings before anything is finally officially implemented. So we'll want to hear from you. If the original motion passes, we will want to hear from you when that time comes. And I promise you that process will be there.
Okay, any other discussion on the amendment? Yeah.
Susan Duncan, Cedar Street, one of two houses on Cedar Street. I am adamantly opposed to the article that's presented. I think the legislature did a terrible job of opening a door without any protection for the people who live in the town. I think Tom, and I thank Mr. Caldwell for his thoughtful amendment, which I was proud to second. I think it provided some parameters and some direction that gives the town some checks and balances. I can appreciate people and businesses wanting to operate these, but I think we owe it to the youth of the community, to the people who might live near these social districts, to have some containment, some rules. I'm sorry that legal counsel feels that the amendment is not permitted. Therefore, I guess I would ask that you vote down Article 12 and let the legislature come back with some more definition to protect the people. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
Matt Dustin, Mountain Hill Road. Regarding the amendment, notwithstanding the legality question of it, would the adoption of the amendment make it so that the only changes that could be made to the social district, if it were to be reintroduced next year and then accepted, would it make it so that only changes could be done at the town meeting and remove the select board's ability to modify any changes to the social district as it is implemented?
Does somebody want to answer that question? Yeah.
I didn't hear anything in the amendment that took away the select board's options after it's implemented and approved and implemented in town. I would take it as we could make adjustments if things weren't working or we found a better way to do it. That's my understanding, unless I hear differently from town council.
Further question?
Yes.
Would that then make it so that the amendment is essentially void in that it can be introduced in one capacity, but then if the select board determines that what was adopted by the town and voted on at the following town meeting, it can be modified by the select board, essentially making it not necessarily worthless, but by having no authority beyond the town meeting?
I'll take a stab at that if you want.
Sure.
And that is if the town meeting adopts specific rules or guidelines at town meeting, they would have to be adhered to. I don't think they could be modified.
Okay, thank you. I just want to trying to understand whether or not in the implementation of the amendment we're boxing ourselves into something that we necessarily don't and want to do in the first place. So thank you.
Other discussion on the amendment?
Hi, my name is David Kafka, Fox Run. Just for clarification, so town council has expressed an opinion that the amendment may not be legal. That's an opinion. It sounds like the way that that would be addressed would be if someone took it to court. If that did not happen, I assume, and this is a question though, would the select board then need to follow the requirements as expressed, as voted on at this meeting, unless it was challenged in court? And then, if so, what would happen at the next town meeting? And the reason I ask this question is because it sounds like the opinion is that if the amendment is invalid, the whole article will then become, even if it's voted on positively, will become invalid, and then nothing the select board does will have effect. So that means that the only person or entity that would challenge it would be someone that doesn't want the social districts at all. If people were in favor of the social districts, there would really be no reason to oppose it. So I'm just trying to understand, if there is no court challenge, what happens then?
It's an excellent question. I'm not sure I have an excellent answer for you. Unfortunately, the way that the legislature drafted the legislation was that the town meeting was ostensibly green lighting or red lighting this option. And that was the intention of the legislature, was just to give the authority to the selectmen to create these districts if you so chose. The way that I understand the amendment is it's intended to try to get the selectmen to try to develop a plan before coming back to town meeting for this authority. If that's the case, I think then I would probably advise the selectmen that the statutory language has not been implemented in the way it was intended by the legislature. Therefore, I don't think that the select board would have the legal authority to go forward with the creation of the social districts as allowed by statute. I think they would have to probably propose this in next year. And again, at that time, if they choose to propose a plan or identify their wishes at that time to the town meeting, they certainly can do so. But I think at this point in time, if the amendment passes, I would not be advising the select board that they have authority under RSA 178 to create the social districts, again, as anticipated and as designed by the legislature.
Okay, thank you.
Go ahead, Rob. Thank you. I'm going to make a recommendation here, and that's that we, because basically the outcome, if this amendment passes and then social districting passes, or the amendment fails and then social districting doesn't pass, it's the same result. So either way, we're coming back here next year. So my suggestion is going to be to vote the amendment down, then take a vote on actual social districting, and then we kind of know where we're at. And then if it does get voted down, then the board comes next year to us in front of town meeting and presents a plan, and maybe we'll have a little more clarification next year. That remains to be seen, but that would be my recommendation. So please vote this down.
Tom?
There's nothing in the legislation for this social district that requires the selectmen to wait until it's approved before developing a plan. They could have gone ahead and done that so that we would know what we're in for. It was their decision not to do it because it could be a total waste of time. And that certainly makes sense. I don't disagree with that. But there's no reason that the selectmen over the next year could not develop a plan and bring it back next year with the details that we want. Even if this article, even if this amendment passes and ultimately is adopted, it doesn't mean, I just lost my train of thought. I guess, yeah. I'll leave it at that.
Okay, thank you, Tom. Anyone else want to, before we vote? Paul?
Paul Regan, Blue Tick Drive. Mr. Moderator, I'd like you to ask the select board, what would, if the amendment is voted down and the warrant article is passed and we green light this, what is their anticipated implementation schedule? Are they thinking they can get this done and we'd have it in place for this summer and use it? Or is it still going to be probably the summer of '27, in which case implementing this article and deciding again, even if it's illegal, we would vote next year's meeting to approve it on a detailed plan. So how much does this upset the intention of the town and the select board to implement this, is what I'm trying to ask.
Thank you.
So a couple things. We've discussed this kind of to a limited amount as a board. Essentially, the plan going forward would be to probably, I would think, maybe develop like a social districting committee, which we could open up to the public, to members of you from the public, to participate in that committee, to basically evaluate what needs to be done to comply with the law, what it's going to cost the town to do, and all those impacts like were mentioned before, police impacts, waste impact, who's going to pay for what. Basically what we're asking you to do right now is to allow the select board to pursue that. There's been comments made to me in the past few weeks that, we're going to have social districting, and if social districting passes, we'll be good to go in April. Well, no, you're not. This is going to take a while to implement. This may not even be implemented this year if we pass it, but it gives the select board a reason to work on something. If this is voted down, I believe we need to vote in favor of it to trust this board to go forward and develop a plan and give them the ability to implement it, whether they feel it is responsible to implement it or not. To spend that kind of time with what I was just saying to do, and then come here just to come here with a plan and say, oh, we don't know if we're going to do it or not. The select board has a lot on their plate to begin with, and so does the town administrator, and so do other town officials. This is basically just giving them the green light to go ahead and work on that. I think Sean had said it already. There are going to be public hearings. There will be public input before the board goes ahead with anything, and I would be very surprised if anything were even to be implemented before next year. So,
Joe.
Joe Christie, Chestnut Street. I just want to speak to the amendment. I feel like we're blurring the lines a little bit between the warrant and the amendment. Yep. I think if we have on public record town council stating that the amendment is not legal, I would strongly encourage the body to vote it down and to go back to the original warrant, simply because if we were to vote the amendment through as a potentially illegal amendment, we're tasking our select board, who has a fiduciary responsibility to follow state statute, to not follow state statute. And I think as an elected official in the budget committee, I would not feel comfortable, going along with what the body voted when it's also against state statute. So I would encourage us to maybe move towards a vote on the amendment, and I would suggest voting it down to get back to the original warrant for further discussion.
Just a quick note, also understanding that whatever plan that the select board of the town of Bristol comes up for this does have to be approved by the Liquor Commission.
Wayne?
Wayne Anderson, Summer Street. I just rise in, I'm against the amendment for the basic reason it just opens the town up to some kind of legal action, which we would have to defend ourselves, which is a cost to the taxpayer. So I would hope that we would vote down the amendment, but I'm totally in agreement, Tom. There's nothing that precluded the select board from devising a plan and bringing it forward. You guys have so much you've worked on this past year. This is a low priority. Do we really need to consider this year? We could vote this article down. You could, if you have time, spend time in developing a plan and bringing it forth for the town to consider. My recommendation again is I would vote down the article as amended, and then I would vote down the article. Thanks, Ned.
Thank you, Wayne. Anyone else want to speak? Yep, John.
Just from John Miller, 180 Castle Lane. I guess the biggest thing is I want to respectfully sort of disagree with the position you're taking around we could have developed a whole plan. I think to properly develop a plan, you need the planning board involved. We need to establish committees. We need to go talk to the businesses. We need to start to establish a lot of connections, and it's a significant amount of work. I think when this first came up, we had a whole long conversation around what's step one. Step one is to see if the community is willing to have us do that work. Given everything else that we have going on, that is the effort that you're talking about should not be trivialized, not the right word, but it is definitely significant for us to do that. So to me, it's definitely step one. I completely understand the purpose of the amendment and the things you guys were going for. I think that those are appropriate questions to have answered. But today, it's definitely blurring the lines. If we can get to the next step, but I just want to make sure you guys understand that to do this right really does mean there's probably a good dozen people or so immediately involved in trying to figure out what makes sense and where it makes sense.
Okay, are you ready to vote on the amendment? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, what?
Motion.
David Blyler moves that we close debate, and seconded by Paul Reagan. All those in favor of closing debate on the amendment to Article 12 signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. We're now voting on that amendment. Does anybody want me to read it again? No. Okay. If you vote aye, you'll be voting in favor of the amendment. If you vote nay, you'll be voting in opposition to the amendment. All those in favor of the amendment signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. Nay. The nays have it. You've defeated the amendment. We're now back to discussing the Article 12 as it appears in your warrant. Is there any more discussion? Paul?
Paul Manganello, Lake Street, Bristol. Just back to something that Rob said, that you'd been in discussions with the communities downtown and then up in the lake. And I'm curious as to, I've seen some poles put up with electrical power provided to them on the foot of the lake. Is somehow that modification or upgrade to the beach area, is that part of the social districting location?
No, that has nothing to do with the social districting. That was just to accommodate vendors when, like when we have 4th of July, when we have vendors down on Shore Drive, but nothing to do with the social districting whatsoever.
Okay.
Yes.
Cheryl Szyzeski, River Road, Bristol. Before I go into my comments on the point made about that there would be hearings according to the law, I have a copy of the law here on Chapter 178, and I don't read that there's any requirement for hearings. So is there a different law that's being referred to about that? Or where did that information come from?
Does anybody know whether hearings are legally required? Do you know? Yep.
Pursuant to RSA 178, there's no requirement for a public hearing. However, all the efforts on establishing the social districts would have to be done by and through public meeting and only public meeting. So all those, any effort of the select board in establishing social districts, no matter where they are in the town, would require public notice and an opportunity for the public to attend the public meetings. Presumptively, I would assume that during the course of those public meetings, that there would be public input, but that would be at the discretion of the board. But everything would be in public session.
So which section of the law are you referring to?
I'm not referring to RSA 178, but I'm referring to RSA 91A, which is the right to know law. So any action of the select board has to be in public session unless exempted by the right to know law. But this would not be a situation where there would be an ability for the board to go into non-public session. They'd have to conduct these in public session.
Okay, so you're referring to the right to know law?
Yes.
Okay, I get it. Okay, thank you for explaining that. So I read the law, and I read the management plans by some of the towns that have implemented this in North Carolina. And I don't see this as a good fit for Bristol. It really seems to be set up for city-type environments. And as you probably know, Laconia and Concord have approved it. I think this is a great idea for Concord. And Portsmouth, Nashua, and Keene have turned down the option to have social districts. Bristol does not have the infrastructure that the law is assuming. So we don't have public bulletin boards where as required by law, the posting of the boundaries of the district, the hours of operation, the days of operation has to be posted, the telephone number of the police department, of the liquor commission, and some other information has to be posted. We don't have that. We don't have really public seating areas outside, so like Concord has. we don't have the garbage cans and the trash receptacles that would be required. The law requires that before you leave the social district, you have to dispose of the container that you have. And that, what towns in North Carolina have done is they've made that the responsibility of the public service, public works department. So when you say there's no impact to the town budget, the police department is going to have to monitor that people are within the correct days and times, are using the district, that they're staying within the boundaries of the district, that they're carrying their alcohol in the legally required type of container, and so that likely is going to require additional resources. Because you have to dispose of these containers before you leave the social district, there's going to be a lot of garbage that has to be picked up. So there may be additional staff required to handle the garbage pickup or the recycling. In North Carolina, they were concerned about the amount of garbage. They wanted more recycling. They now, one of the towns requires that the container be made of steel, and the individual businesses have to purchase this. There's labeling that has to occur. There's what some of the other towns have done is there's contracts that are made with all the businesses in the district, whether they opt in or opt out. Their insurance, there's a requirement that the insurance be modified to protect the town, and that there be a minimum insurance coverage of $1 million. I'm not saying that would happen here, but these are considerations that you don't read about or hear about a whole lot in the law, and they're considerations. The other concern I had initially is downtown has pretty much all of the businesses have glass walls from floor to ceiling, and now we're going to have people walking around with alcohol in their hands around all of these glass walls, and I don't know that that is a good idea. There's just so many ways that this is, not to mention the toilet facilities that the Liquor Commission is likely going to require. Concord has public restrooms. I don't know that, I'm not aware that Bristol has public restrooms. So I think that's going to be a consideration. There's going to be a lot of work if this is passed, put in by the select board, and ultimately I don't think the Liquor Commission will approve what Bristol comes up with. And I think this should be voted down. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Cheryl. Anyone else?
David Kafka again. Just one further question on this. This would authorize the select board to proceed, correct? But that doesn't require the select board to proceed. I mean, for example, the select board could simply say, you know what, it doesn't make sense for the town of Bristol, and that's it. Is that a correct statement?
I believe that's correct.
So, to a large extent, what we're discussing here now, without going into all the details, is whether or not, forgive me, but whether or not we trust the select board to make a reasonable decision or not. If we say no, then the select board doesn't discuss it. If we say yes, the select board can then proceed or not proceed. So I'm just saying what we're really voting here is whether to allow the select board to further pursue it. It doesn't require the select board to go through all these steps.
you can presume they didn't put it on the warrant if they didn't intend to pursue it.
Okay. What I mean is not that as we go into the details, for example, all the issues that have been brought up so far, those discussions will occur. So it is conceivable that once the real requirements, details, costs, and so on are really analyzed, it may stop there. That's all I'm saying.
Okay.
It's just we're not requiring social districts to be implemented. Is what I wanted to say.
Thank you. David?
Hi, David Blyler, Crescent Street. Just as we're approaching the first principles of just conceiving whether a social district is a good idea for us or not, and some of the concerns, mine is obviously that I think the town square is the most probable location, and given that it would probably coincide with the summer season, vehicular traffic through the square is very high in the summer, and that could cause potential issues. I was wondering if it wouldn't be out of line to ask the opinion of our police chief about the idea of a social district and public consumption. I'm not sure if he'd be willing to say, if he has any concerns, I think he's who the townspeople would like to hear from most of all. So I'm not sure if he'd be willing to share his opinion, but.
Okay, well, he can be. Chief, do you want to comment?
I don't think this allows, you still have public intoxication that somebody could be put in protective custody, so it's not allowing people to be intoxicated downtown, it's allowing them to have a drink. It also, the establishments are required by liquor laws and liquor commission not to serve somebody who's intoxicated. So if somebody went into their business, they were heavily intoxicated, they should be refusing them. So I think if this, I think the selectmen would work with the businesses, the residents, and the police department to come up with something reasonable. We would patrol this by routine patrol or getting calls. If we got a call for somebody intoxicated or being a public disturbance, we would still be able to address that. So passing this doesn't allow somebody to be walking around intoxicated downtown.
Thank you. Yeah, John?
Yeah. I just want to reiterate one more quick point. I really appreciate the perspective of, you're just trying to figure out whether we trust the select board to do that. But it's also a matter of, when you look at the volunteerism that we have in the community, it's very, very high. And this is also sort of just asking the body, hey, we're going to expend resources in that same way. We're going to be asking those volunteers, whether it's planning board or others, to have input into all this. So it's not just the select board. I think it's the request of having more folks than that do that.
You ready to vote?
Motion to close debate.
Who was it? Rick Alpers moved to close debate, and it was seconded by whom? Janet Metcalf seconded that. All those, and we're closing debate on the article itself. This is Article 12. All those in favor of closing debate signify by saying aye. Aye. And all those opposed say nay. Okay, we're going to be voting on Article 12. Just hold on for a second. This requires a ballot vote. So, in honor of the season, the spring, we're going to use daffodil yellow today, okay? Each of you, when you go out and see the supervisors, they're going to give you one of these. There's two boxes on it, a box for yes and a box for no. And what we're going to do is we're going to ask you to check whichever box and put the whole ballot in. Just check your box. Do not rip it in half and put it in. Because what's happened at other meetings and other places is people have torn them in half and put them in, and they've ended up with more halves than they have people. Okay? And that's actually negated the vote. So we want to make sure we don't do that here. So just check off the yes or no and put it in the ballot box. Okay? And the polls do not have to be open for any specific length of time. So I'll come back in here and make sure everybody's voted, and then I'll close. So make sure you get out there and do it as quickly as possible. Okay? Thank you very much.
That's why I was late.
children.
Yes.
So who's I don't know. Right, I'm saying, but the fact of the matter was, very, very good to get rid of those because nobody was using them. Right. I mean, well, yeah, I mean, all our patients we see, we don't see patients in stores.
Hi. Good, how are you? Good.
Staying out of trouble?
Trying.
It's hard job, isn't it?
It is very hard, yeah. Depends who you ask, right? I either ask my wife, she'll say I'm not an expert.
When we did the introductions, you could have said select board and budget committee.
Yeah,
You don't
none
have
of
to.
us, none of us did the,
Yeah, you don't have to.
I guess, yeah.
Actually, you're right, all of you could, because somebody
We
else
all
could have
could-
said
we all have a
select board and
subcommittee.
planning
Yeah.
or select, yes, you're right. But since we were, I'm like, all 7 of us here, and I'm like, oh, somebody's missing, who is
Yeah, yeah.
that? And then I'm like, oh, Scott's here, he's on the
Yeah.
other side.
On Springs, I didn't make note of that, so there's.
Oh, yeah, right, no, it wasn't, no,
Late.
oh, it's not
Late. Yeah, it'll go, I think it's the first 3 or 4 more are support, are 4, and then it comes on.
How are you? Okay.
But no one's questioning it.
No, I thought it was interesting. Actually, I mean, the question I was going to ask was for this what we're doing now. The question I was going to ask is, I expect that there will be some cost to implement this if we do it, and we're allowed to ask or require the businesses that will benefit to pass some other costs on. And when he made his amendment, Caldwell was saying the RSA says we're not allowed to do that. So I didn't ask the question. I just did that. So that was the big thing. I'm going to support the businesses. I don't, as a taxpayer, I don't want to subsidize the businesses.
Did you get cold all of a sudden? Is he have his nice fuzzy sweater on?
No, I don't, because out there in the public, tattoos, things
Oh,
like
yeah,
that,
yeah, yeah,
people,
yeah. Okay. Just covering up.
they
Gotcha.
frown upon it. That's why I care.
Yeah.
This
is not going to happen. Like, if anybody knows how trying to get licensed.
Oh, you're welcome.
I gotta use the restroom.
I was thinking amendment, it might invalidate it, but it doesn't change anything. If it invalidates it, you come back next year, I ask for permission, but you're going to have a detailed plan because we've told you we
myself, as a board member, will not pursue this at all, because I will not put the town in legal harm away, and, because there would be some legal costs associated with that.
I hear what you're saying.
If there was-
I was thinking who would bring suit, but my, so I was planning to vote for the warrant article until Joe spoke, and then he said, for the amendment. I was gonna vote for the amendment until Joe spoke, and then I said, you know, he's right. We shouldn't purposely do something that's not legal.
Right, and that's, right.
So, when the amendment went down, I was not upset. I was expecting somebody from the select board to stand up and say, we understand it's not binding, it's not anything anyway, but yes, we will tell you, we will not, we're not gonna get this implemented in the next 3 or 4 months to get it in place for the summer of 26. So it's really gonna be for the summer of 27. So we'll come back next year, even if it's not legal binding, we can put an advisory question on the warrant, where you guys can still vote.
Hey Cheryl,
Yes?
do I have to get sworn in again? I have to get sworn in again?
Yes, you do.
Yeah. I'm doing a slideshow, so when you need a slide change, let me know.
Just wait.
Okay. It's cool. I forgot to tell you about Harrison.
Well, I didn't get here till like 2 after 9.
Me?
And all of my budget committee members are telling me.
What?
ID for a ballot vote?
Well, when I get to the top of the stage,
I appreciate
So, listen. I will tell you, I was sore all week. Snowshoe. So
I thought maybe she was snow. I talked to her yesterday. She told me.
So I should have turned around when we got down to because I have negative flexibility. Those buggy. So I was yeah. So then, like, this looks good, but then the rest of the week, my calves, they're just like so tight. There's like,
I was going to say that's the other problem.
also like breaking trail. So I broke trail the entire time. I was maybe like a 5-minute here push on kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then I stopped to talk, and then I was just like, no. So, no, you did. So, I pretty much followed the track the entire time. But because of the heat, the snow was softening. And it was still a challenge. So when we crossed that first little gully, I stepped down, and my shoe went right through the boards. It went right through. And so I went down, and I couldn't get back up. I'm like this. I'm like, I was ready to take my straps, and then Mark was here, and he's like, hey, I'm just doing this guy down. So the tail up through and came up. And then we were further down, almost to the end, and I it either slid out or just come back. And I was like, but then 5 minutes later, I'm on flats. I think all of a sudden I stepped like this, and I was going with this one, and I had stepped down on top of it. And it went right through the hole in the snowshoe by the toe. No, so it was an anchor. And this fell. I fell.
You fell in, but your foot was in it. That's even worse.
Yeah, I went right down.
How are you?
It was like this, and then I just went forward and fell on my face. And then, but then I
Excuse me, I need to just do something here with Karen real quick. But you know the other thing?
Yeah, I'm right. And I had a 30-inch shoe. If I would have had a 36, it would have been better. Yeah, it was the heat. If I would have stayed like right around 30, I think it would have been fine.
Are you okay with taking cash? Sunshine, which is our personal money.
You can.
Has everybody voted who wants to vote? Anybody hasn't voted yet? Okay. With the exception of the 3 people that were standing in line when I just left out there, I'm going to declare the polls closed.
Never, all right.
The supervisors are counting the ballots right now, and they will bring us the results as soon as they're complete. But in the meantime, we'll move on to Article 13 and begin our discussion. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the Budget Committee's recommended sum of $10,489,158 for general municipal operations. The Select Board recommends $10,495,768. This article does not include appropriations contained in special or individual articles addressed separately. And is there a motion?
Make a motion.
Moved by Paul Regan and seconded by
Second, Karen Bemis.
Karen Bemis. And would you like to address your motion?
Nope, hold on, I want to make a comment. So, I'm going to probably fail, but I'm going to try to stick to the 3 minutes that Ned suggested. I need to make a quick disclaimer. So, life is complicated, and municipal finances are not an exception to that. So, I put together a set of slides to try to share information and simplify things. But that's all mine. These slides were put together not by the committee, they were put together by me over the past couple of days, so I will take responsibility. If you have any questions, you can ask now. If you want more information later, please feel free to come up and ask. I'll share whatever details you want. If you could put the first one up. I just wanted to point out again that the town is responsible. I mean, we're talking about the budget, but most of us, when we think about this, are really thinking about our tax bills. Just want to point out that the town sends out a tax bill, and really only 3/8 of that is to fund the operation of the town. 5/8 of it goes to the school district or to the county. So if you go to the next one. That's okay. So this is a pie chart that basically, instead of showing you, I didn't count them, but there's probably 25 department sections in the budget. That's too many to make a pie chart. You don't see anything. So I tried to group them into bigger groups. This is basically totals up to the 10 million that's in the warrant article that you're talking about. It's got 8 sections. One of the sections is water and sewer, but water and sewer is run as an enterprise fund and is completely funded out of the fees that we collect for people who use the water and sewer services and is not funded by your taxes. So if we go to the next slide, this is basically the same information with only 7 sections that's getting funded out of the municipal funding, I'm going to say. And this totals the $9 million. That doesn't mean we raise $9 million of taxes, because we also have revenues and state aid. So we get, I think we're getting like $4.2 million, so we need to raise roughly $5 million. And now I'm rambling because those numbers aren't exact. So let's go to the next one. So I wanted to compare. I believe what this is this is what you approved last year, similar to what, no. What's that? Oh, thank you. So I'm going to go a little off track. What we're asking you to vote on for this warrant article is the budget. But I think we're all very concerned with how much money are we really spending total. So this pie chart shows the spending in the same 7 sections, looking for all of the warrant articles. So this includes the future projects of the Beach Street road work and the fire department equipment and fireworks and contingency and things like that. So this is total spending proposed for the town in the 26 total warrant. And then the last slide I have is an attempt to show you differences from 25 to 26. So the inner circle, the pie chart in the middle, is looking at the total spending for 2025 with all the warrant articles. And then the extensions of each of the pie there shows you how much that section is increased from 25 to 26. So you'll see that obviously the red section, which is public safety, we've got another warrant article to talk about, another 500, that went up. You've got highway in tan. We've got a project where we're asking for approval for a major road culvert culvert the right word? Whatever, a major road project that we need to do, but that goes up. The one thing that surprised me a little bit that I just want to explain to you, I was surprised that the violet, I guess, the purplish color, which is community services, looks like it goes up a lot. And primarily that's because we did something that we don't really like doing and don't normally do in the past. So if somebody is proposing to do a large, particularly like a one-off spend for a large amount of money, we strongly, as a committee, say, let's not bury that in the budget where people won't really see it. We go back to the select board and say, we don't want it in the budget, we want to put it on the warrant so that everyone can see what's going on. At the very last moment, we had a request from the Pemmy Path Committee. They basically said, on the last day with the budget committee was meeting to look at changing the budget, they said, just this morning we got a quote for $70,000 to do the detailed design work for the new proposed Pemmy Path. Will you put it in the budget? And we said, well, $70,000 is a lot of money. We'd rather have it be a separate warrant article. And what we were told was, well, the select board's already finalized the warrant articles. We really don't have an opportunity to do that. So we agreed to put it in the budget. The one thing I will say is we challenged the Pemmy Path Committee and we said, well, what's your intention here? And they said, well, we're looking to do public fundraising to build the path. I said, well, shouldn't you also pay for the design? They said, yes, that would be our intention. So I'm hoping that we're gonna spend this money and eventually we're gonna get reimbursed. But it's a chicken and an egg situation where you can't do the fundraising until you know what you want to do, and you don't know what you're doing until you do the design work. So what they basically said to us is, we need the money to do the design work, and then hopefully the project is going forward, and when we do the fundraising, we'll eventually find a way to get that money back to the town. I know I exceeded 3 minutes, but that's what I have to share with you. So I'll sit down. If you have any questions, please speak up.
Questions or comments on Article 13, your budget? You ready to vote?
Motion to close debate.
Kevin McCaffrey, 33 Autumn Lane. Just to go with your Pemmy request.
Sure, go ahead.
When I was on the budget committee, we did not accept requests like that to be put into a budget because that's separate usually of their normal operating budget. I always take issue with anything that gets put in last minute to a budget that everybody may have gotten a chance to vote on it, but we as a town, like you exactly said, on a warrant article where we can get information, discuss it, and make an informed decision. I know the budget committee probably did all of that in their request, but to me, if you want that kind of money in your budget, there has to be a reason. Obviously, the highway department knows they're gonna do street work. They usually put it in their budget accordingly, like for road paving, things like that. But yet they need an extra request for specific work for a project that they have in mind, and they usually put a warrant article in for that, which they did. So I just find it odd that they come to you for a request. And I do understand where they're coming from, that they can't raise money if they don't know what project they're doing. But there are a lot of other community resources that raise money without having a design, without having thing. They have a plan, they put it together. Designing a project like that usually comes later, not in the beginning. And they usually raise the money to do the design project in that. Or include it in the warrant article, like I'm sure the culverts are, the design is included in the cost of all of those culverts as well. So I just
Okay.
find it kind of an issue with that, so I might consider amending the budget to, you know, have them come back in a year to do that, you know. But, thank
Okay,
you.
thank you. Anyone else wish to comment? Would you like to have the results of the first article? Article 12. 107 people cast votes, 50 in the affirmative, 57 in the negative, and you defeated Article 12. Okay, other questions or comments with regard to Article 13?
Hi, Scott, Overlook Drive. I just want to kind of speak to your concerns, Mr. McCaffrey, on that. Pemmy Path Committee has been moving as fast as they can. They're working with the Army Corps, so it's been very difficult, and this was literally a last-minute decision. Ultimately, it's up to the body to decide whether they want to move forward with the Pemmy Path project, but we felt they've been working years on this project, and it's had the support over the years. So we don't want to slow down that progress. And we're very close to having an agreement with the Army Corps.
Jan?
Janet Metcalf Hall Road. A question and a comment. The question is, could you explain the difference between the select board and the budget committee, the amount? And before that explanation is given, I'd like to make a comment about the Pemmy Path funding that was put in. I concur with the previous speaker. I am on the Pemmy Path committee. I went to the budget hearing. I was the only community member at it, and I felt like it was a personal presentation of the budget. But I didn't know that it had been added, and I would say the reason that it was added was because this town is really committed to doing this Pemmy Path. And the committee from the beginning has said we don't want the taxpayers to absorb it, we want to do it in kind and by raising money. But this has been over 15 years in process, and now is within a year of happening. And the design is holding us up. And the budget committee was kind enough, I think generous enough, to include this with the caveat that the committee would be raising money to repay it. So I'd just like to say that I'm in support of doing that, and I would ask my first question to be answered.
Okay, you can.
To answer your question, the difference between the select board budget and the budget committee budget is almost zero. You know, I'm gonna pat ourselves on the back a little bit as a select board in terms of the operating budget. When you look at the initial difference before the Pemmy Path situation, the initial difference was about $80,000. That's 0.7% difference between the select board's proposed budget and the budget committee budget. And I would also add that there were portions of the budget that the budget committee added to the lines that the select board had proposed for very good reason, based on continuing information from department heads. But we've worked very hard to make that difference be fairly negligible and not contentious. I commend the budget committee for the work they do. It's a lot of work, and I appreciate that. Thank you.
Jan, did you get the answer you're looking for? Okay.
I'm sorry. If we support this, which budget are we supporting? Okay, thank you.
The answer was the budget committee budget. Jeff?
Jeff Goodrum, 17910 Mile Brook Road. I just want to commend the Budget Committee and the Select Board and all the town officials. If anybody takes a minute to look at page 48 in the town report of what the budget was for last year, it was $9,915,763, and what they actually spent is almost $900,000 less. That usually isn't what you see on a budget of any kind. So, thank you.
Wow. Any other comments, questions? And is there a motion to close debate? Yeah. Somebody up here. Paul Bemis moves that we close debate, seconded by Wayne. All those in favor of closing debate on Article 13 signify by saying aye. Aye. And all those opposed say nay. Now voting on Article 13. And you'll be voting on it just as it appears in your warrant. If you vote aye, you'll be voting to adopt Article 13 just as it appears. If you vote nay, you'll be voting in opposition. All those in favor of Article 13 signify by saying aye. Aye. And all those opposed say nay. You've adopted Article 13. Article 14, to see if the town will vote to establish a contingency fund for the current year for unanticipated expenses that may arise, and further, to raise and appropriate $30,000 to put in the fund. This sum to come from unassigned fund balance. Any appropriation left in the fund at the end of the year will lapse to the general fund. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Selectman Legue and seconded by?
Yep, second.
Seconded by John Miller. Okay, and would you like to speak to your motion?
Sure.
I'll be even much less than 3 minutes. Historically, up until about a handful of years ago, maybe 7, 8, 9 years ago, I don't know, time goes by really fast now, this was actually in the budget, it was a budget line. The state changed and made us make a warrant article every year, and so this is basically something that we use as a board to have a little flexibility to cover things that come up through the course of the year, unexpected repairs to equipment or buildings. Historically, we've tried to keep that at $20,000. It did get increased a little bit because everything is increased, unfortunately. Thank you.
Comments or discussion on Article 14? Seeing none, is there a motion to close debate? Who's that? Joe Christie moves that we close debate, seconded by Jeff Goodrum. All in favor of closing debate on Article 14 signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. You're now voting on Article 14 just as it appears in your warrant. All those in favor of Article 14 signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. You've adopted Article 14 just as it appears in your warrant. Article 15, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $30,000 to be added to the Patriotic Recreation and Special Events Expendable Trust Fund established in 2020. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Selectman Glassett and seconded by Scott Sanchagrin. I always screw that up, sorry. Would you like to speak to your motion?
Yes, sir. Good morning again. So this motion is to put it in front of you, the voting public, to see if you would like to have a fireworks display. Typically, we do this on 4th of July weekend. Unfortunately, with this being the sesquicentennial, the 250th anniversary of our country, those slots not only booked up very quickly, but the vendors were also looking for much larger sums of money for displays this year in order to make it worthwhile for them. Unfortunately, we're very limited in what vendors we can use. We basically have a one-stop shop that they bring a barge, they bring the fireworks to the barge, And then they provide and perform the show. That said, the big benefit to us as a community is that there's very little work on the part of the town, where in years past we had to provide 4 barges, which were also graciously provided by Greg Wagner of West Shore Marine. But it still created a lot more work for the town and therefore cost on the town. So this year's what we've done is we have it scheduled for the weekend following 4th of July rather than schedule it on a Sunday. This is one of the few things that the town residents really ask for and the seasonal residents look forward to and ask for every year. So we felt it best to move it to the following weekend, which would be the weekend of July 10th and 11th. What we're proposing is to schedule it for the 11th, which would be a Saturday night with a reverse rain date. So in other words, if rain was forecasted for the 11th, we would then move it back a night to Friday night rather than have it being on a Sunday night as we had to do a few years ago, which unfortunately a lot of people do leave town on Sunday night and miss the show altogether. So, but same company as the last couple of years. We've had great feedback on it. We're starting to draw some folks into town from out of town, which also benefits businesses in our town throughout the day, with folks coming in and spending money and increasing revenue to our town. So, if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. If not,
Yes.
Hi, Becca Boudreau, Pikes Point Road. What is this year's cost for the fireworks? What will we be spending?
so the display itself is $28,000. The other $2,000 is to cover any other fees with the vendors that are provided on Shore Drive and logistical and operational costs.
Okay, and to follow up, what is our current balance now that we have in this fund?
There is no fund. I
There should
apologize.
be a
Hold
current
on one
balance.
second. So I apologize, I was wrong on that. There is a balance of $6,000 in the fund.
And last question, do we get any funds from neighboring towns for this? Or do we ask for them?
We do not. So I don't know if you remember last year, when I came in front of the body here, my recommendation was for the community to come together and form a fireworks committee to start soliciting donations from businesses, fundraising, from whether it be from residents, businesses, other towns. We did put information out, I believe, through social media, trying to recruit people to do so. Unfortunately, we're still in a position where we had no interest. And the fireworks committee at this time basically consists of myself, the police chief, the town administrator, and one other community member. And the fire chief, sorry. So I'm a little frustrated with that. Unfortunately, with all the board has to do to running the day-to-day operations of the town, that's not a project that the board was able to tackle on its own. Again, we solicited community interest, and we had very little in return, and unfortunately, that's.
Those letters in the past and got no response.
Yeah. So as Selectman Legue stated, we've sent letters out in the past and have had no response to those either. So unfortunately, it's become kind of a product of our society with the lack of volunteerism and trying to get people involved in things like that. It's kind of frustrating. So.
Okay, other questions or comments? Okay, you finished discussing the matter? Okay, is there a motion to close debate? Sue Colby moves that we close debate. And who's seconding that? Who's that up there?
Richard Batchelder.
Richard Batchelder is seconded. Okay, there's currently a motion to close debate on Article 15 to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate $30,000 for the Patriotic Recreation and Special Events Fund. Okay, all those in favor of the of closing debate signify by saying aye. Aye. And all those say nay. You're now voting on the article itself. All those in favor of the article signify by saying aye. Aye. And all those opposed say nay. Nay. The ayes have it, and you've adopted the provisions in Article 15 as they appear in your warrant. Article 16, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $166,895 for the Beach Street Culvert Replacement Project, including permitting, site preparation, roadway reconstruction associated with the culvert work, drainage improvements, materials, and construction services, and to authorize the Board of Selectmen to take any and all actions necessary to carry out this project. This will be a non-lapsing appropriation per RSA 3276 and will not lapse until the project is completed or by December 31st, 2031, whichever is sooner. And is there a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Selectman Legue and seconded by Scott Sanchagrin. And would you like to speak to your motion?
Yes, sir. I'm usually the one who gets his name butchered all the time. A little bit of background. We actually established a roads committee with a member of the select board, myself, our highway supervisor, and a couple other folks to look at projects that are upcoming, to concentrate on issues that are not, to concentrate, to plan for not just band-aiding things. And we've given a lot of talk and discussion about if we're going to redo a section of road, then we're going to redo it. Drainage, infrastructure, and make sure we're not just putting another couple inches of asphalt on it that doesn't really serve us well as really fixing it. Now that's going to mean a little less coverage every year, but over time a much better infrastructure. And that speaks to this issue here. I received a phone call this summer and went out and took a look at the issue with our highway supervisor. And yeah, okay, thank you. So what we're looking at is the purple line that is running through 168 and 169 and exiting on the river. This is a collection drainage that drains pretty much everything uphill of it on Beach Street and everything up above. And it's been failing for quite a long time to a very small degree. It gets undermined, the pipe rusts out, it gets undermined, a sinkhole is created, we fill it with material, and that's good for another couple of years, but then a sinkhole starts and we fill it with material and bags of concrete and get it patched up. And it's basically gotten to the point where we can't do that anymore. And it needs full replacement. We have a right-of-way for that drainage system through those two properties. It's somewhat difficult. There are buildings, there's a parking area there, there's fence lines. So it's a little more complicated than just throwing our backhoe on it and getting it dug up. We've done the engineering work, and this is a project we hope to get done this summer. It's going to be critically important, as like I said, it's the collection point for all that water uphill. So it's not only just the drainage system, of course it protects the road infrastructure in the area, and also protects those nearby properties from the ongoing erosion issue that is our issue as a town to address. So I really hope you'll approve this. It's a much needed repair and fix to a problem that is only going to get more and more expensive the longer we wait. Thank you.
Questions or comments? Paul?
Paul Manganello, Lake Street, Bristol. I think Sean just helped me understand the semantics of the change in the language of 2024 to 2025. The line item on page 69 or 39 is there's the highway maintenance construction, which was line item. I got to make it so it's bigger here. 390, 4312, 390. And in last year's book, that was called for resurfacing. And we've all known the paving budget in the past. It's $300,000 typically we put in there. And this year, we're calling it road maintenance and not calling it paving. And it speaks to me to say that, it seems to me that if the goal is to make sure the roads are ready for surfacing versus Band-Aiding them, that this $166,000 should be part of that $300,000 that you're asking for, that it's not going to paving, it's going to reconstruction.
But this isn't a road project. It's 100% a drainage project on our water, our drainage system on the hill above the village. Yeah.
But it's not detrimental to the road?
We will be opening a small section of the road where you can see the purple square is there, to tie into the existing drainage structure in the road. But it's predominantly a drainage issue, and we felt that we had actually looked at increasing that line to include this, but we felt that it was better to have the people talk about it and see if it's something that they're going to support on its own.
Okay. So, guardrails, road maintenance, I thought there was a drainage item here. Let's see. The line above it is a great drainage item? Yeah. On the previous page. Yeah, for $12,000. So that's obviously not going to support $166,000.
Right.
But you didn't.
Those are other drainage.
That's where you were thinking of putting that 166 in that line item above it there,
I
which
believe
was.
so, but yeah. Yeah, I believe, and I'm actually going to ask Victor to just speak quickly about the project.
When we have a road working group to discuss these matters, we had discussed that at length on whether we would put it into the operating budget or put it out to the general public. The reason they decided not to do that was because the projects that are in the operating budget, the department actually does itself. This is something that we had to bid out and contract out. And because it's contracted out, we felt it was best to go to a warrant article item.
Thank you. Rob?
Paul, I kind of wanted to address what you were saying about whether or not we were to make it part of the budget or not. Victor, and as well as the committee that Sean is involved with, they've come up with a pretty comprehensive plan throughout the town to address the subsurface of the road prior to paving it. So to make sure that the money we're spending on paving every year, which is a huge chunk of change, is money well spent. And that we're not going to waste that money and have problems 5 years down the road. So what they're looking long term on this. And you know, my first thought when this project came up was, you know, maybe it should come out of that budget, or we should add this money to that budget. I am not for adding that chunk of change to any single line item for a one-time use as it. What I've seen in the past is when you add that kind of money to one line and say, yeah, we just need it this year, a lot of times people forget about that, and the next year that $300,000 line becomes a $450,000 line. And then things expand upon there. So, we as a board felt it most prudent and responsible to put it in front of you, the taxpayers, and say, is this project worth it? Having been down there and when this actually happened and when this undermined, my personal concern concern as a select board member was, what's the liability if somebody goes down there and falls in that sinkhole, or some young kid goes down there and we have a rain event where there's a high water flow and some young kid falls in that sinkhole and then gets washed out into the river, which is, it sounds a little ridiculous saying that, but that is the reality of how dangerous that could be, with a lot of kids in that neighborhood. So I think it's something we need to address right away, and I encourage you to vote in favor of the article. Thank you.
Kevin?
Kevin McCaffrey, 33 Autumn Lane. So you said it was just for the one section? It doesn't include the road that we're going to be repaving? Because
You want to answer that, Victor?
I just had it shows the purple line going all the way down the street, so.
Yeah, we'll have Victor answer that for you.
It's a 4-foot culvert. It starts at the square and goes down behind the two houses down to the river. The purple also designates the line going up the road. That is not being repaired. The repair is going from the corner of the house on Beach Street down behind all the way. It's about 238 some odd feet. And again, the size of the culvert, it's a 4-foot culvert. It's not something that the department, as small as it is, has the machinery and the capability to do. Yes, it does connect in there. That is a turn point for it. That line goes all the way up Beach Street, collects Beach Street, goes all the way up 2nd Street, all the way up to the Meadows on High Street. That is the last collection point for the turn. So the only repair that we're talking about is from that culvert right there, that basin in the road, down behind through all the properties, not going up Beach Street. Beach Street is not scheduled to be paved this year. That'll just be a repair on the road. We did, not last year, but the year before, a very large repair from 2nd Street up Beach Street, and that still needs to be continued up Beach Street because it's failing up there. But the working group, we're taking all these areas that we're having problems and prioritizing them. What we want to do is do the repairs on that road and then do the paving. That next section up Beach Street, up 2nd Street, again, would be way outside the means of the highway department to do it. But with that being said, we're trying to extend the life of that so that I think this has failed more so because of the river, as it goes to high water mark, comes all the way up behind the buildings and rots that pipe out much quicker than the others. So we do have life up Beach Street, we do have life up 2nd Street, but the working group that I have built is now looking at these things, trying to put them in phases to go, can we repair now Beach Street? Can we now repair from 2nd to Walnut Street? So that it's not a huge burden, but it's a feasible burden.
Thank you.
Just one more question while he's here. So,
Just talking to the microphone, Kevin.
so it was last year's budget. Beach Street was supposed to be paved according to last year's budget.
No, it wasn't on my budget last year.
Oh, I thought it was, but anyway, okay. So we're going to do this repair, but we're not paving Beach Street until the rest of it is repaired before. So we're not putting money into it and then having to rip it up.
No.
Okay.
No, we're not paving Beach Street this year. We did major repairs, and if you earlier there was some video of where we had the loss of the top of 4th Street Prospect. We did that repair. We did a very large repair on Chestnut Street last year. Top of Ellen Lane, we did a repair, and again, these were all basically failed collapsing systems that we were able to repair, and it was in the department's operating budget to repair.
Okay.
Now, as the repairs continue along, we will now phase in the new pave lines and go, okay, this road's been repaired, this will be scheduled to be, because if you go up 4th Street right now, it's a rough ride because of all the repairs.
Okay, thank you. Joe?
Joe Christie, Chestnut Street. I just wanted to share with everybody. So Chestnut Street's just a few streets up from this. That entire side of town has natural springs all over the place. There's constant running water. I would suspect that most of these drainage culverts have running water in them almost 24/7, regardless of rainfall. So whether it's in the operating budget or in a warrant article, I would just encourage the body to approve this work to be done because there's an immense amount of water in that side of town.
You ready to close debate? No?
One quick comment. Don Milbrand. Another reason that this is a separate warrant article is that even though the intent is to get it done this year, it's going to be an outside contractor, so there could be scheduling delays and what have you. And if it was in the budget, then the money would lapse, or we'd have to scramble to make sure that there's a contract in place to encumber the money. The non-lapsing portion of this warrant article allows us that flexibility that if we can't get it scheduled until into next year, the money is there and we don't have to go through more appropriations every year to get it there.
Now are you ready to close debate? Okay, and who would like to make that motion? Les Dion moves to close debate, seconded by Sue Sedano. We now have a motion to close debate. This is closing debate on Article 17. All those in favor of closing debate signify by saying aye. Aye. And all those opposed say nay. Now voting on Article 17. 16, I'm sorry. All those in favor of closing debate on Article 16, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. And now we're voting on Article 16. All those in favor of Article 16 as it appears in your warrant signify by saying aye. Aye. And all those who oppose say nay. You've adopted, the ayes have it, and you've adopted the provisions of Article 16 just as they appear in your warrant. Article 17, to see if the town will vote to amend the existing ambulance replacement revolving fund established by the town meeting vote in 2014 pursuant to RSA 3195H, such that the purpose of the fund shall be amended from replace ambulances to replace ambulances and motorized firefighting apparatus, and that up to the first $500,000 of ambulance patient proceeds shall be placed in the fund each year. The money shall still accumulate from year to year and shall not be considered part of the town's unreserved fund balance. The town treasurer shall still have custody of all money in the fund and shall pay out the same only upon order of the select board, and no further approval is required by the legislative body to expend. The balance of the fund shall still be included in the town report each year. Such funds may be expended only for the purpose for which the fund was created. And is there a motion?
Yes, so
moved by John Miller and seconded by? Seconded by Joe Christie. Would you like to address the motion?
Yeah, just a couple quick things, and I'm sure the chief's got a bunch of stuff for all of us. The piece that I wanted to bring up for everybody here, we tried to, I think, challenge basically all departments, especially ones with large expenditures, to look at the expenditures and be appropriate around how do we look at where we have income, how do we address the income, how do we allocate it effectively, so that we don't end up in a situation where we're borrowing money and fundamentally paying interest to the bank, because they're the only ones that benefit, not us, in that scenario. When you look at the fire trucks, we definitely, from a schedule perspective, have a replacement cycle, and we're getting dangerously close, I think, on that, and a couple pieces of equipment. The chief can speak to that in a minute. When you look at page 69 in the town report, it shows a balance of about $500,000 today in the fire truck line. It's really about $382,000-ish. We have some requests out from this year around some expenditures there. And just engine 2 alone, when we get to the point of making that order, and we'll get to this in a second, is $1 million for that truck roughly, right? It's another couple million when we talk about a ladder truck, right? So now we're staring at several $1 million in the next several years, and we're trying to figure out how do we get between here and there. So this was one way I believe the chief had come up with to try to address those things and put us in a position where we're not paying from an interest perspective and being very transparent around what we're trying to spend on. Anyways, that's what we're going for.
Questions or comments? Carol.
Carol Brown, Upper Birch Drive. Having just read this now, does the last sentence in that article negate what you're trying to do? So does that let me be clear, does that last sentence mean you can only expend money for the original purpose for which the fund was created? That's what it says. Is that what it says? Question.
Do you have any thoughts on that, Council?
The purpose of the article is to amend the actual revolving fund to incorporate the firefighting apparatus. So if you vote in the affirmative for this, you'll be changing the purpose in which you can expend money for. So the last line is consistent with the rest of the article in that you can only expend money for the purpose as amended in the 2026 town meeting. So that's what you'd be voting for.
I guess the answer is it doesn't negate it, so. Paul?
Paul Manganello, Lake Street, Bristol. I want to call your attention to page 14 on your handout, your town meeting book, when we had a lengthy discussion about the 4 new firemen that we hired on last year, and the use of this ambulance fund to offset the cost of those additional firemen. You know, the comments in the top paragraph was it was $400,000 in the fund that particular year, and a forecast of $500,000 for this year. I can't see, you can't break out in the revenue aspect of the town report specifically how much money the ambulance fund made, and I was just curious if we could know how much funds were available to be put in there.
Chief, can you answer that?
Yeah, so I think just for clarity, I don't exactly know what you're asking about the discussion from last year. That may be a little conflated. But as far as the ambulance patient receipts this year, if you had the breakdown, I think the number was roughly 600,000. So we have been basically in the mid $500,000 for probably the last handful of years. If you look back at old reports, it doesn't necessarily say that, the way they account for how these funds are placed, but you add the 60,000 that currently goes in, plus the 400 and something that shows up, and it's roughly 550,000. It was a little bit higher this year. So we should exceed this number, and it creates a plan that is sustainable, and yeah, that's what I have for now.
Paul, do you have a follow-up?
Just one follow-up question, which was what was presented earlier about the cost, and in 2031, I think we're looking in Don's worksheet is when we need like $700,000 or $800,000 for that fire engine that's coming up. Is there any consideration for leasing fire equipment, like we do with the highway department, so that we can just make those costs, recognize it, $200,000 every year, and put it on Don's spreadsheet?
Go ahead, Chief.
Yeah, so a couple of things. Leasing's still financing at the end of the day, and so yeah, we can lease them today. There's some legislation that may not allow us to do that in the future in the House right now. But again, leasing, there's still a cost with leasing. And so the goal of the select board when we started to talk about how do we fill this gap was we want to avoid finance charges. So call it a lease, call it a bond, it's a different level of voting, whatever the rules are around it, it's still 2 or 3 or 4% of finance costs now on $1 million versus the few $100,000 that this truck cost initially.
Okay. Don?
Don Milbrand, just a real quick clarification. Thank you for the recognition, Paul, but it's the CIP committee's spreadsheet, not Don's spreadsheet. The committee does a really good job, and I just type on the computer and put it in. I think the other question that Paul had raised about the expansion of personnel in the fire company for this, correct me if I'm wrong, Chief, but those positions are paid through the contracts to the other towns. That's a separate and different revenue stream than what we're talking here. This is a revenue stream from the charges of using the ambulance services. Not from the contract towns, but the actual patients being charged. That's these revenues.
Rick?
Good morning, Rick Alpers, Hall Road. I think this is a prudent, strategic move here in the sense that what folks really need to know is that these fire trucks, being an engine, a standard engine, could take 2 to 3 years to get. So we have to order it ahead of time. You know, a ladder truck could take 3 to 4 years to get once we order. I think this allows us to have the money ready. So if we want that engine in 2031, we need to have the money ready potentially in 2028, 2029 to be able to pay for it and have it. Maybe there's some semantics there. Maybe we don't need to actually pay for it until we take ownership of it in 2031. But let's be funded. Let's not borrow money if we don't have to. I think this is a wise decision.
Joe Christie, Chestnut Street. When the budget committee considered this request, I certainly walked away with the impression that this is the most conservative approach to procuring fire apparatus, ambulances, etc. This is a really prudent way for us to avoid the impact of interest on the tax rate in the future. And then I think the chief also made a very prudent point to us saying, I think the point that probably all of us are frustrated by is that a fire truck costs $1 million or $2 million, but that's a reality. And so for me on the budget committee, that really came down to we have to find a way to fund fire trucks, or if we don't want to, then we're asking a question about whether or not we want a fire department, and this community has supported the notion of having a well-staffed and well-equipped fire department for decades. So, I would really encourage you to support this bill. I think it's a very prudent way to save funds for future expenditures, not have to have huge swings in the tax rate when we have to buy new equipment. I thought this was a very well thought out proposal from the chief. So thank you.
And then Paul, just to answer, a thought from me on the whole leasing piece, right? So if you get into a leasing cycle, again, there's finance charges that get you there anyways. It does put you on a replacement cycle, but then it doesn't allow us to have a better conversation, candidly, with the departments around what's the utilization of said piece of equipment, right? That is something that I think we're getting much better about around, okay, a piece of equipment is out this many days, it responds to this many calls, and there's ways for us to try to use some predictability and all that, and then maybe our replacement cycles get addressed in a different way in the future. If you start signing up from a leasing, then you're basically saying, I'm replacing that thing every 3, 5, 10, 15 years, and now I'm paying finance charges only on the usage of that. I still think you end up with much more flexibility in this manner. Hopefully that answered sort of where you were going.
Any other questions, comments? Yep.
Hi, Lisa Ford, Hemp Hill Road. I just wondered, I see them different places sometimes, but what happens to the old fire truck? Who gets it, who sells it, who gets parts from it, who utilizes it, and who gets the money?
Typically, and Chief LaRoche, please tell me if you disagree, that piece of apparatus would get traded in. Depending on the department's needs, a lot of times there's not enough trade-in value to make it worth it. If it's still serviceable at the time, it might be worth keeping it in reserve for a few years. Because of the updates in NFPA standards and everything, there's very little value in used fire apparatus, especially in this situation where this piece of apparatus is going to be 25 years old when it does come time to trade it in. So I would anticipate the value of that probably being somewhere in the $10,000 to $20,000 range. So there's not a lot there. So I mean, it would be up to the department to decide what their operational needs are at the time, and if it's worth keeping it as a backup, and what's the cost benefit about as far as increased maintenance, that sort of thing, or is it better off to just, or is it more prudent to just send it down the road? So,
Have most of them in the past gone as a trade-in, and has that amount been deducted off the?
I'm sorry, could you say that again?
In the past, has that amount been as a trade-in and gone as a deduction towards the new fire truck from the place that you're purchasing it from?
Yes, I can speak to when that particular piece of apparatus was replaced. The truck that it replaced was used to offset the cost, and that amount was $8,000.
Thank you.
Jeff?
Jeff Goodrum, 10 Mile Brook Road. I'm wondering about if Ben could answer a question. And my question is that if we're taking this $500,000 income stream and allocating it solely for this new fund, well, not new fund, but only for that fund, is that going to leave Ben short somewhere else? Because I assume the proceeds have been going into the fire department general fund. Is that true, Ben?
No, so the ambulance billing, excuse me, really from the beginning, and certainly the 20-something years that I've been here now, that billing historically went into the general fund. It was just like any other revenue. Okay. And so in 2014, we created this fund as it exists now, and hopefully it'll be different when we vote. But in 2014, we said, let's start taking $40,000 from ambulance billing proceeds, and we'll allow that to build up. We'll put it in there every year. We'll allow it to build up, and then every year at that 6-year replacement cycle, for 12 years for an ambulance, but every 6 years we'd replace an ambulance. And it was very successful. And in 2018-19 timeframe, we increased that to $60,000, which is where it sits today. So that's the only amount of money from those billing proceeds that I or the fire department specifically uses. The rest of it just goes into the general fund, and it's part of that larger revenue pool. So this money here just says that it's earmarked specifically for that, and until any further change from a town meeting vote, it's going to go in there and can only be used for this. So you do lose that revenue on that revenue sheet, but it's going to a known expense and a known expenditure, right?
Okay. I'm assuming on that note that the town is anticipating if this passes, they're going to have a $500,000 deficit a bit in the general fund. Is that right, Christina?
A couple things, not so much a deficit, but yes, there will be 440,000 difference not coming in as a revenue to the general fund. However, I'd say a couple of things about that. One, anything above this amount goes into the general fund, and two, what you're really doing is you're not taking money from your general fund 5 years down the road when we're
Right.
paying a bond of, $600,000 because we don't have enough to cover that.
All right,
Yeah.
thank you.
Okay, any other discussion, comments? Ready to vote? Motion to close debate? Yeah. Chris Durbin moves that we close debate, and is it seconded by Dorcas Gordon? All those, now let's see if I get the right article this time. All those in favor of closing debate on Article 17 signify by saying aye. And all those opposed say nay. You've closed debate on Article 17. We're now voting on the article itself. And if you vote aye, you'll be voting to adopt the provisions of Article 17 just as they appear in the warrant. If you vote nay, you'll be voting in opposition. All those in favor of Article 17 signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. You've adopted the provisions of Article 17 just as it appears in your warrant. Okay, it was moved by Selectman Sandshergan that we restrict reconsideration on Articles 13 through 17, and it was seconded by who? By Rob Glassett. What that does is we're just asking to restrict reconsideration, which means that it could not be, these articles could not be reconsidered during this meeting. If somebody did want to make a motion to reconsider and the body did want to reconsider them, we would have to hold another meeting, post another meeting in the future in order to have them reconsidered. But they couldn't be reconsidered today. Everybody understand that? So if you're in favor of restricting reconsideration, you'll say aye. If you're opposed, you'll say nay. All those in favor of restricting reconsideration on Articles 13 through 17 signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. The ayes have it, and you have restricted reconsideration on Articles 13 through 17. Article 18, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $395,000 to be added to the following capital reserve funds previously established. Accrued wages capital reserve fund, $15,000. Assessment reval capital reserve fund, $45,000. Fire equipment capital reserve fund, $50,000. Highway equipment capital reserve fund, $180,000. Police vehicle capital reserve fund, $80,000. And town building maintenance capital reserve fund, $25,000. And is there a motion?
Mr. Moderator, I move Article 18 as written.
Moved by Selectman Milbrand and seconded by John Miller. Okay. Would you like to address your motion?
Yes, please. You've seen this several years now. Quite a few years ago, we started putting away money for future expenditures. The Capital Improvements Committee is recommending some of these. A couple of the other ones that are not in actual capital reserves are recommended by the Select Board to prepare and have money set aside for future large expenses there. It's basically putting money in the savings account so that when you have these expenses, you're not borrowing money to pay for those. Thank you.
Any comments or discussion? Seeing none, is there a motion to close debate? So moved. Rick Alpers moves to close debate. Is there a second? Who's that up there? Dottie Christie. Moves second to close debate. This is to close debate on Article 18. All those in favor of closing debate on Article 18 signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. You've closed debate on Article 18. You're now voting on that article. If you vote aye, you'll be voting to adopt it just as it appears in your warrant. If you vote nay, you'd be voting in opposition. All those in favor of Article 18 signify by saying aye. All those opposed say nay. Article 18, the ayes have it. Article 18 is adopted as it appears in your warrant. Yes. There's a motion to restrict reconsideration on Article 18. Is there a second to that motion? Carrie Nyberg seconds the motion to close debate. Seconds the motion to restrict reconsideration, excuse me. All those in favor of restricting reconsideration on Article 18 signify by saying aye. All those opposed say nay. You have restricted reconsideration on Article 18. Article 19, to see if the town will adopt the provisions of RSA 7235 for an optional tax credit of $2,500 for a service-connected permanent and total disability on residential property. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Selectman Santrigan and seconded by
Myself.
Rob Glassett. Would you like to address the motion?
Yes, thank you. Scott, Overlook Drive, and this is due to a state law change where we currently have citizens receiving these credits, but they are in separate entities. The state are not allowing them to stack them, so we came up with a slightly increased amount from $2,450 to $2,500 to allow these citizens to maintain that tax credit.
Comments or discussion? Seeing none? Somebody want to move to close debate? Our clerk, Cheryl Herbert, wants to move to close debate. Is there a second? You already did. So, give me somebody else up there. Wendy. Okay. Greg Woolsey does. Okay. All those in favor of closing debate on Article 19 signify by saying aye. All those opposed say nay. You're now voting on Article 19 just as it appears in your warrant. All those in favor of Article 19 signify by saying aye. And those opposed say nay. You've adopted the provisions of Article 19 just as they appear in your warrant. Article 20, to see if the town will modify its elderly tax exemption consistent with the provisions of RSA 7239A from property tax assessment in the town of Bristol, based on assessed value for qualified taxpayers, to be as follows. For a person 65 years of age up to 75 years, $35,000. For a person 75 years of age up to 80 years, $55,000. For a person 80 years of age or older, $75,000. To qualify, the person must have been a New Hampshire resident for at least 3 consecutive years, own the real estate individually or jointly, or if the real estate is owned by such person's spouse, they may have been married to each other for at least 5 consecutive years. They must have been married to each other for at least 5 consecutive years. In addition, the taxpayer must have a net income of not more than $25,000, or if married, a combined net income of less than $45,000, and own net assets not in excess of $70,000, excluding the value of the person's primary residence. And is there a motion? Moved again by Selectman Santrigan. And seconded by Selectman Glassett.
Again, just updating the existing tax exemptions for the citizens that qualify. Okay. They also, these amounts have not been changed since 2007.
Any questions? Ready to vote? And who wants to move to close debate? so get your. Yeah, what's your name? What? Scott Severin. And newly elected. And seconded by who? Rosanna Anderson. Okay, all those in favor of closing debate on Article 19 signify by saying aye. And those opposed say nay. You're now voting on, excuse me, Article 20, excuse me. Excuse me. Thank you. All those in favor of closing debate on Article 20 signify by saying aye. And all those opposed say nay. Now you're voting on Article 20 just as it appears in your warrant. All those in favor of Article 20 signify by saying aye. All those opposed say nay. You've now adopted the provisions of Article 20. Article 21. Shall the town modify its tax exemption for the disabled consistent with the provisions of RSA 7237B from property tax assessment in the town of Bristol based on assessed value for qualified taxpayers to be as follows. For a person 65 years of age up to 75 years, $35,000. For a person 75 years of age up to 80 years, $55,000. For a person 80 years of age or older, $75,000. To qualify, the person must have been a New Hampshire resident for at least 5 years, own the real estate individually or jointly, or if the real estate is owned by such person's spouse, they must have been married for at least 5 consecutive years. In addition, the taxpayer must have a net income of not more than $25,000, or if married, a combined net income of less than $45,000, and own net assets not in excess of $70,000, excluding the value of the person's personal residence. And is there a motion? Selectman Sandringham moves, and is it seconded? Seconded by John Miller. Would you like to address your motion?
Again, this is the same as the last article with the update of 2007.
And is, yes, Cheryl.
Cheryl Szyszewski, River Road, Bristol. So I was reading this last night, and it seemed to me that Article 21 is about the same as Article 20. And what I'm curious about is, so if a person is, let's say, 77 years old, and they have a disability, a permanent disability or whatever, are they going to get the $55,000 from Article 20 because they're old, and then also another $55,000 because they're disabled?
There's a state law that you can only qualify for one of those.
Okay, that's what I had sort of assumed. So what this article is saying is that if a person is 40 or 50 years old or under 65 and they have a disability, Bristol is not going to give a tax exemption to that person. Is that what we're saying here?
These are New Hampshire statutory.
What? You got to come to the microphone.
Thank you.
These are not something that the town comes up with on its own. They're allowed by law, and the age on it is statutory, so we can't. Now there's also the blind and where Article 22 speaks somewhat to that for certain disabilities.
Right, but why do we even have this if the person is already going to be eligible under Article 20? Number one. Number two, I read the law for this, and there is no age limit listed in the law. So that, so where's this coming from? And why do we even have it if they already are eligible under Article 20?
I'm not sure we have an answer for you. Yeah. We're looking right now. Yep.
These are all enabled by state legislation. They've been adopted by the town of Bristol many, many, many years ago, and periodically we come here to you to update update them based on many, many things. Not the least being a couple of them talking about valuations. We've seen how valuations have increased over the years. So I can't speak to you in terms of, I don't have enough personal knowledge to say, well, they qualify for this or they qualify for that. That's another office. But all we're doing is updating the existing tax credits that we currently offer, and there's nothing in here that talks about, you know, doing away with any of those.
Okay, but again, RSA 7237B does not talk about age limits. And what you're doing here is saying that anybody under the age of 65 in Bristol cannot get a disability tax exemption. And I think that that's against the law in New Hampshire. I realize that you probably can't change this here, but I think the public should be aware of this, and that's moving forward in the next year, the select board or the town administrator or somebody needs to address this so that disabled people under the age of 65 are included. And well, yeah, under the age of 65 are included.
Okay. Thank you, Cheryl. I think we'll still try to get an answer for you as to whether or not there are any age requirements, if there are in statute, and I think town council's looking for that, and we'll get the answer to that if we have it, but we probably have to address it as it appears in your warrant today. Yes.
Joe Kirsty, Chestnut Street. I did just pull up the RSA, and it says, upon the adoption of this paragraph by a city or town as provided in RSA 7227A, a person who is eligible under Title II or another title of the Federal Social Security Act on his or her 65th birthday shall remain eligible. So it does actually indicate a threshold of 65 or older.
Okay. Are you ready to vote on the article? Yes. I guess that's what I'm asking for, is whether or not somebody wants to close debate. Who's that up there? Richard Poitras. Rich. And seconded by? Tyler Ford. What? Tyler Ford. Tyler Ford. Okay. We have a motion to close debate. This is to close debate on Article 21. Hopefully I got the right article this time. And all those in favor of closing debate on Article 21 signify by saying aye. Aye. And all those opposed say nay. You've closed debate on Article 21. We're now voting on the article itself, and you're voting on it just as it appears in your warrant. All those in favor of adopting the provisions of Article 21 signify by saying aye. Aye. And all those opposed say nay. You have, in fact, adopted those provisions. Article 22, shall the town modify its tax exemption for the blind consistent with the provisions of RSA 7237 to allow an inhabitant who is legally blind, as determined by the Blind Services Program, to be exempt each year on the assessed value for property tax purposes of his or her residential real estate to the value of $45,000. Is there a motion?
Mr. Moderator, I move the motion as presented.
Moved by Selectman Milbrand and seconded by Selectman Legue. And would you like to address it?
Very quickly. I believe everybody sees the pattern here, so I'm not going to say anything more than that.
Is there a motion to close debate? Who's that up there? Who? Annie Lerner. And seconded by? I already got you once, Rosanna. How about somebody else? Mark Barassa? Yes. Okay. All those in favor of closing debate on Article 22 signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. You've closed debate on Article 22. You're now voting on the article just as it appears in your warrant. All those in favor of Article 22 signify by saying aye. Aye. And all those opposed say nay. You've adopted the provisions of Article 22. Article 23, shall the town modify its tax exemption for the deaf or severely hearing impaired persons consistent with the provisions of RSA 7238B from property tax assessment in the town of Bristol based on assessed value for qualified taxpayers to be as follows. For a person 65 years of age up to 75 years, $35,000. For a person 75 years of age up to 80 years, $55,000. For a person 80 years of age or older, $75,000. To qualify, the person must have been a New Hampshire resident for at least 5 years, own the real estate individually or jointly, or if the real estate is owned by such person's spouse, they must have been married for at least 5 years. In addition, the qualified applicant must have 71 dB average hearing loss or greater as determined by a licensed audiologist or qualified otolaryngologist, and must have a net income of not more than $25,000, or if married, a combined net income of less than $45,000, and own net assets not in excess of $70,000, excluding the value of the person's primary residence. Is there a motion?
Mr. Moderator, I move the warrant article as written.
Moved by Selectman Milbrand and seconded by Selectman Miller. And you want to address it?
Scott and I decided that even though the moderator is getting very good at his name, I'd give him a little bit of a break on this one.
Any discussion? The motion to close debate? Somebody who hasn't already. Joanne Bailey moves we close debate. How about somebody else? Jimmy Nyberg seconds the motion. All those in favor of closing debate on Article 23 signify by saying aye. Aye. And all those opposed say nay. You're now voting on Article 23 just as it appears in your warrant. All those in favor of Article 23 signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed say nay. The ayes have it, and you've adopted the provisions of Article 23. Article 24, to see if the town will vote to adopt RSA Chapter 53F and establish a commercial property assessed clean energy and resilience CPACER district, which shall encompass the entire area within the boundaries of the town of Bristol, whereby properties within the boundaries of the district may fund qualifying improvements to real property through private lenders as a result of agreement between the property owner and the town of Bristol, and further to authorize the select board to execute all documents and perform all municipal functions in accordance with RSA Chapter 53F, and further to authorize the select board to enter into special assessment agreements with qualifying property owners. And is there a motion? Moved by Selectman Miller and seconded by Paul Bemis. And would you like to address the motion?
Yeah, Paul clearly will have a lot more detail than I will, but I guess the thing I want to make sure that everybody understands, when it was first presented, the first questions that we had as a board were like, okay, what is that putting us on the hook for? And we sent the Energy Committee, and specifically Paul, back to really research with the different businesses in town who would be interested in this, what the burden would be from a department perspective, and he can speak to that. But fundamentally what we got back was, There were several businesses in town that were interested in taking a look at this, and there wasn't really going to be a burden from a town perspective. So anyways, just to give everybody a perspective. Paul, you want to, I don't.
Yeah, my name is Paul Bemis. I'm Castle Lane, Bristol, New Hampshire, and also chair of the Energy Committee. This is a financing program. This was the first law passed in last year's New Hampshire legislation, bipartisan, by the way, first law signed by Kelly Ayotte. This is focused on finance primarily to allow longer-term amortization of energy-related and also water resilient improvements to property. The difference here between PACE and normal programming, normal financing, is this financing package is tied to the property. So as the property changes hands, the lien goes with it. It's not tied to the individual. This overcomes two of the largest hurdles we have with respect to clean energy improvements. Number one being the upfront cost, and number two being, am I going to own the property long enough to amortize the investment I've made? It overcomes them both by providing capital, private, by the way, this is not public capital, this is private capital, but a long-term program. And it also goes with the property should the property change hands, which many people are concerned about with respect to. This is commercial only, that's the C, it is not residential yet. There is some work going on to look at a residential complement to this in the House and Senate, New Hampshire House and Senate right now. There's a study going on. This one is for commercial. So for business owners, if you are an LLC or an S Corp or a C Corp, all of them apply. It is also, of course, for multifamily, and up to 35% of the value of the property can be used in this kind of program. So that's what it is. There's very little burden on the town other than we, by statute, have to pass this warrant article. There will then be a hearing on it that needs to be done to implement it, and there's very little that we have to do from the town's point of view. It is really the private lender together with the property owner. The administration of it is being done by the Business Finance Authority. It has been centralized in New Hampshire. They did this to avoid overhead of each of the towns. They centralized it. The Business Finance Authority, which is located in Concord, is the primary entity for bringing the private lender together with the building owner to set up the financing. The responsibility of the town is to just be aware of it because it does show up as a lien on the property.
Cheryl?
Cheryl Szyzewski, River Road, Bristol. I just want to bring some information out from the shadows of this. The New Hampshire law to authorize PACE liens is over 15 years old. Between 2010 and 2015, I think it was, nobody took action on it, and then from 2010 to 2015, or from 2015 until last year, 10 years, again, it wasn't used because it was poorly thought out. So builders or contractors didn't want to get involved with it. Last year, there were some changes made to the law to make it, to create some structure, and it was put under the auspices of the New Hampshire Business Financial Authority, I think it's called. They have a guidebook. If you look at their guidebook and you look at their online documentation, and you look at who is currently using this program, according to them, as of yesterday, still nobody is involved with this program. If you look at the list of approved lenders and the terminology used in their guidebook is something like capital providers. So you'd think, I don't know, a bank, but if you look at their list of who is an approved capital provider for PACE loans, C-PACE loans, there's only 3 listed. None of them are banks. They're all like PACE, da-da-da. 2 of them are that. Another one is a green, da-da-da. So I looked into it a little more. Banks are federally regulated. There's rules that banks have to abide by. PACE loans are not regulated much, essentially unregulated. So whoever gets involved with this, it's sort of like the Wild West. I don't think it's a good idea for Bristol to be one of the guinea pigs for this program. I think it would make sense to wait a year or 2, 3, or 5 to see how this gets implemented in other cities and how it plays out. Everything has a beginning, a middle, and an end. And one thing you have a lot of hard time finding is how things end with this. If the property needs to have another mortgage, a second mortgage, if there's a foreclosure, if the town of Bristol has to take over a piece of property, there's complications about how this lien, and this is a lien against the property, it's paid and it's billed by taxes. So the software that the town uses has to have a way to add this lien onto the tax bill. This isn't not paid like a mortgage, like every month and whatever. This is going to be paid the once or twice a year that the billing comes in. So you're talking about tens of thousands of dollars that whoever takes this loan is going to have to pay at one time. And that's quite a burden on businesses and small businesses. And again, in Bristol, that's going to probably end up being a hardship. This doesn't get, so it lends to itself to the loans not being paid, they get foreclosed on, again, it's a Wild West situation. I think we should wait until we see how this plays out in other locations, other towns in New Hampshire. Thank you.
Thank you, Cheryl. John?
Yeah, so just real quick, I guess the one thing I just want to make sure everybody understands, by going through this, all we're doing is making it available. We're not forcing anybody to take any loans from anybody. There's nothing here that's saying business X must go get this done. That's not the intent or anything that's going on. So just to be clear for everybody.
Nancy?
Nancy Dorner, 166 Castle Lane. I do not believe, because this has not been taken advantage of, that we shouldn't be first. I have not read all the background, but I do know that I trust Paul Bemis when he does his research. I do not think he would be bringing something to the town that would in any way become a possible liability for it. And I think he's very careful in his research. And so I would not vote this down because it hasn't been used yet. Thank you.
Carol?
Cheryl Sazetsky.
No, hold on.
Oh, Carol.
You already had one turn. Let's let somebody else have one, too.
Thank you, Cheryl. Carol Brown, Upper Birch. This may be a question more related to how it was passed at the legislature. If we agree to this, and Mr. Moderator, you could have Paul address this, is it unfair to those businesses in town that may not subscribe to a green energy philosophy? If they choose, if a business says, I don't agree with this, I don't believe I need to go that route, those that do subscribe to that philosophy get a benefit that the others don't?
Paul, do you want to address the question?
I would say no, simply because it's up to the business to either take advantage of it or not. Again, it's not being imposed, it is simply something to take advantage of. So the comparison of someone taking advantage of it and someone not would be no different than someone upgrading a heating system or not. It's just simply how you finance it, that's all. It's simply it's a financing program. To Cheryl's point about it not being, it has been around for a while and not used because each town had the burden to do the administrative overhead related to the program, and most towns found it too burdensome to take advantage to implement because of the issues related to tax and so forth and implementation. In this bill, what they did is consolidated that into one entity, the Business Finance Authority in Concord, and they are now responsible for all of the overhead related to the implementation, the recording of it on the tax deeds, and the records of it. So the town has very little liability, very little downside risk, and it is a pro-business bill. I mean, it's for businesses in our town, and we like to position our town, the Select Board agreed in this when we discussed it, as being pro-business. So this would be to help our businesses take steps forward to reduce their energy consumption, and it could be any kind of energy improvement. It doesn't have to be specifically solar. It doesn't have to be specifically green. It could be propane from oil to propane, for example. It could be windows. So envelope falls into this category. Clean water falls into this category. It's really just simply a financing mechanism. The issue, however, is that it does need to be brought up and passed by the town in order to be available for potential use by businesses.
Thank you. Cheryl?
Cheryl Sazeski, River Road, Bristol. The loan exists as a lien against the property, and the billing is done by the town, and the town on the tax that's sent to the company includes this, what's owed on the PACE loan. And then the town, if they receive that money, they pay the capital provider. The town is also has to be involved with the assessment agreement. The town it's the town that records the deed or gets the deed information, and they provide, it's a town's responsibility to document the lien. It's not done by the Business Finance Authority.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, I'm trying to think.
Okay. Jan?
Janet Metcalf, Bristol. I rise in favor of this proposal. It's my understanding that the state of New Hampshire passed some guidance about this, and in a bipartisan way, which is very unusual in the state of New Hampshire. So as soon as I heard that, I thought, this has got to be something good. I don't see a downside for the town of Bristol. We are endorsing the possibility of businesses to improve their structures, and they're free to go and find any way to do it. This is providing them an opportunity to do that. and carry the burden forward, I think it's a good idea and I support it.
Can I make
Okay.
one correction?
Hold on.
You
Yes,
want
sir.
to?
You.
Okay. David Kafka, Fox Run. So I'm really trying to understand what the town is committing itself to here. And I have not read the RSA Chapter 53F, so I don't know for sure, but I'm listening to this conversation. There is obviously an obligation on the town here. I mean, this is establishing a specific district, and then it says, as a result of an assessment agreement between the property owner and the town of Bristol. So what is the nature of that assessment agreement that is different from what otherwise happens? What does that assessment agreement actually consist of?
Can the selectmen, do the selectmen know? You're the one that has to make it.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, so from our perspective, it's really just sort of have an understanding of that. I think, Paul, when you and the land use office you kind of work through these setups. What did you find there specifically?
The only responsibility on the part of the town is they're aware of it. To correct earlier statement by Cheryl, it is not the town that is billing in this case. It is the private lender's relationship with the consumer, in this case, the company, the LLC, the S Corp, the C Corp. That's the relationship. The billing is direct from the lender to the consumer, and the town is not in the middle of it. It does not appear on your tax. You know, there have been implementations of this program in other states where it is a tax bill kind of structure. That is not the case here. It's all handled by the private lender and the business owner. What the town has to simply be aware of is the recording of the lien. It has to have a record of it. That's the town's responsibility.
Mike, well,
Yeah,
I'm again reading what this says. It says, as a result of. So, I mean, that's a condition to it. It says, as a result of an assessment agreement between the property owner and the town of Bristol. It doesn't say anything about the lenders. It implies that the thing that gets us started is some formal agreement between the property owner and the town. I'm just reading what it says. I'm not disagreeing with your comment. It sounds as if it requires the town to participate in some sort of agreement, not just to be aware of something.
I guess that's what is obviously an agreement is a contract, so what is it that the town is contracting to do?
The town's responsibility is to be aware of the lien and to record the lien with the town so that it's on our records as a lien to the property. That's to be aware of it, to record it.
With respect, that's not what the wording, I mean, I can't reconcile the wording of this article with the need to, with simply the need to be aware or to record. Because it's making the first step, the existence of the assessment agreement between the property owner and the town of Bristol. I mean, I'm just speculating what's really going on here, but I mean, it makes me wonder, why does the town need to get involved at all in a private, you know, a private agreement between a lender and a property owner? So it seems to me there's something more here that we're not getting. It may not be sinister, but I'm just not understanding it.
Hold on. Okay.
Okay.
Wayne, you haven't had an opportunity yet. I just don't want this to get into a debate. I'd like to have people comment too.
Wayne Anderson, Summer Street. So I think this is a good-hearted effort of a solution looking for a problem. In a capitalistic society, return on investment for any business owner, they weigh the improvements with what it will yield in terms of profit in the end. I don't think we need to get the government, which is the municipal body, involved in a business owner's transaction. If the business owner has the means and he has the credit rating to make improvements, he'll enjoy the return on investment in the end. And it leaves all the town people here out of the equation and out of that loop. And we can live up to the great state of New Hampshire's live free or die statement. Thank you.
Patty, did you have a comment?
Patty Woolsey, 1 Newfound Road. I just have a question, and it may be legal. So as a former tax collector, when you tax deed a property, all liens get wiped out on a property because the tax deed has top priority, except for maybe IRS. Now, in this case, where the lien goes with the property and continues on, does that mean at that point the town has to pay that bill if they own that property?
I'm not sure I understand the question exactly, but to go back to, this question was raised as to why the agreement. Ostensibly, what the idea is here under RSA 53F is to basically allow private lenders to provide money for these type of energy projects. The idea behind the agreement with the town is to create ostensibly an assessment lien associated with those particular assets to create an additional security for the lenders providing that type of support for that project. So it's a way to, ostensibly it's a way to ensure a collection of the financing that's provided for this particular energy project. So that's really what it's intended to do, and that's the role of the town, is sort of to create this special assessment lien that will carry with the property. And I guess, if push ever came to shove, there's probably at least an ability under RSA 80 to make the collection of that lien if need be. But that's the intention behind the statute, is to create basically a security interest for those lenders providing money for these energy projects, if that makes sense.
I think her question was, if the town ultimately takes the property, does
what happens
it
to
take
the lien?
priority over that lien?
The idea is that it's supposed to take priority. So if the town were to take the property, it's a special assessment lien against property. So the lenders would get paid in full prior to the town being able to recover its money.
So what happens if the town keeps the property and doesn't sell it for a few years and the bill comes up? Does the town have to, the obligation is what I'm looking for on the townspeople. So if we take a property, are we responsible for that amount of that lien? That's all.
Ultimately, I believe that the purpose of the statute is to make the lender whole, so the town would be responsible for paying that lien first and foremost.
Yes, sir.
Scott Severn, Scenic View Road. I'm in support of this. I think for very little burden to the town, we're providing an incentive for a business to choose Bristol over another nearby town, and I think that's in our best interest.
And Jeff?
Jeff Goodrum, 10 Malbrook Road. I also rise in favor of this article. Myself, a business owner, owning a few businesses in town, a few buildings in town, I've actually taken advantage of a program. This program may be new, but this concept certainly is not. I have participated in what's called, I think it's 79E or 179. And what that does is, I'll give you an example. Downtown Bristol, right now today, it houses the barber shop and it houses Shacker's Brewery, that particular building right there. So I took that building, and it had been derelict. No one had been in the building for 11 years. Nobody even stepped in the building. It was cobwebs when we bought it. Nobody wanted to buy it. The town showed me this tax advantage. And the tax advantage is very simple. Whatever I bought it for, that's my tax base. It stays stable for 5 years. There's another 2 years you can apply for. You have to qualify. But for 5 years, my taxes, even though I sunk several $100,000 into the building, my assessment was only what I purchased the property for. So this program that Paul spoke to, and what we're voting on here today, this, as a business owner, I would very much want to participate in this. I'll tell you why. Money right now is 7% interest. So if you borrow $100,000, it's 7%. You borrow $1 million, it's still 7%. I just went and looked at the TD Bank building. The TD Bank building has a lot of infrastructure that needs to be done to it. It needs a heating system. It needs a lot of upgrades, basically. So the first thing I thought of when you come out of that building is, how much is that going to cost? What's my cost to purchase it? Then what's my cost to improve it? I would love to own it. I probably won't, and I'll tell you why. Because I don't want to. Right now, at the tax rate, at the interest rate it is at 7%. I don't want that additional burden. If the loan stayed with the building and not with me as the owner, that means that I could purchase the building. Say I purchase it for X, and I do X of improvement. The second X, those improvements would stay with the building. So, in doing so, it wants me to go borrow the money to fix the building. So the police has got a lot better town to police, and the environment of everybody is much better. Look through downtown Bristol. I don't know how many of you folks were here 15 to 20 years ago, but downtown Bristol doesn't look like it does today. We absolutely have improved it, and it's programs like the 79E that have absolutely contributed to the benefit of all of us. It's easier to maintain, it's easier to plow, it's easier to police, it's easier to protect for fire. There's been so many improvements, and programs like this, honestly, make people like me want to invest.
Okay. Yes.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, identify yourself
Karen
first.
Bemis,
Yep.
wife of Paul. So it's a little uncomfortable here to ask a question, but I am wondering, obviously Paul has spoken to Jeff, and I'm wondering if you've spoken to other business owners and what their thoughts were, and also if you spoke to the person who would be implementing this at the town.
Who are you asking that question to?
I would like Paul to answer it, or John.
We love it when you get called out, Paul. Keep going. So yes, as part of the interaction with the select board, I was asked to approach businesses in our town. I spoke to a number of businesses. I spoke to Jeff about his situation. Of course, he already spoke. I also talked to the people who own Odyssey. They are the new coffee shop in town, and they're using mini splits there, so those are heat pumps, and those are big energy consumers. They would love to put solar up. This would encourage them to do it, again, because it gives them, you can call it runway, it gives them length. These things are generally 20 to 30 years, so that length of term allows the payment to be low, so the savings on the solar will be greater than the cost of the financing. So most of these programs are cash flow positive from the beginning because you have that long amortization period, and therefore the financing cost per month is low. That's the benefit of these. Other businesses, including the New Village Pizza, it is the Bristol Local Village. RJ was very in favor of this. He wanted to be here today. He's working. But he also wants to put solar up to offset his energy costs. He sees solar next door. Again, he doesn't know how long they're going to own the building, so this gives him the opportunity to, as Jeff pointed out, make an investment and have it last with the property it goes with it.
Okay. Thank you. Cheryl.
Cheryl Szyszewski, River Road. These are risky loans. They're not bank loans. They're not regulated by federal law. But what I wanted to mention, there was a question about what the town is responsible for. So the New Hampshire Business Finance Authority guidebook, or on their online, what responsibilities does a municipality have once enrolled? And they say primary duties include executing and recording the assessment and lien documents and certifying payment in full. Municipalities and counties then assign the assignment and lien to the relevant capital provider, at which time they can also delegate billing and collections responsibilities.
Thank you. Carol?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. So just to follow up with the gentleman from Fox Run, and what Cheryl just said, so we still don't have an answer to that question that he brought up. As a result of an assessment agreement, so he was asking, and I asked the same thing. We talked earlier today about the amount of work the select board has and knowing how much work our town administrator has. So the question is, how much work will this be for the town? Whether agreeing or disagreeing with it philosophically is irrelevant, but the question is, what kind of work is this going to generate for the town employees?
John?
Yeah, and Paul, please correct me between you and Joanne if I get this wrong, but the answer that we got back was there was understanding the lien piece, because the lien is following the property, and the Business Finance Authority was taking over actually the vast majority of a lot of these pieces, correct?
That is correct. So the Business Finance Authority is assuming most of the responsibility for this.
Okay. I think we're ready to vote.
Okay.
Okay.
Hi, Lisa Ford, Hemphill Road. If, just as an example, if there were, let's say, 4 businesses who had $500,000 in loan with this company, and they all went bankrupt within 1 year, so they're not there anymore. So the lien is gone, it's to Bristol. So they're going to be responsible for all of that money out of the town's budget?
The question is, if a company goes bankrupt, is the town on the hook for the
Yes.
loan?
And like, what if a large amount of them all go out at the same time and you've got all these liens on something that there's no payment?
The liens are attached to the property, not to the town. The town is not the finance authority where we're guaranteeing the loan, right? So the lien is to the property, and it follows that through the process.
But the property might not be sold or turned over into new ownership responsible to pay that loan for
Correct.
years. You don't know. Look how
Correct.
long things have been empty for.
Absolutely correct.
Okay.
Okay, you ready to vote? Yes. Okay. Is there a motion to close debate? Yes. Who's that up there? Elizabeth Miller. It moves to close debate. And who's that? I didn't hear it. Okay, did you get that? We got it. I'm sorry, I couldn't understand. They're here. We have a motion to close debate. This is on our Article 24. All those in favor of closing debate on Article 24 signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. We're now going to vote on Article 24. If you say aye, you'll be adopting the provisions of Article 24 just as it appears in your warrant. If you say nay, you'll be in opposition. All those in favor of Article 24 signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. Nay. I think the ayes have it. And you've adopted the provisions of Article 24. Article 25, to transact any other business that may legally become before this meeting. See. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. Please don't skip out just yet. Just have a very important thing to discuss here for a second. And in honor of Mr. Moderator's admonition at the top of this, and every town and school board meeting for the last few decades, I'll keep this relatively short and to the point, like the Gettysburg Address. Today we have the privilege of recognizing someone who has quietly but profoundly shaped the civic life in the town for more than 3 decades, Edward Ned Gordon. A famed member of the world-renowned Newfound class of 1966.
There's 2 of us here today.
For 32 years, Ned has served as Bristol's town moderator. That's more than just a title. It's a role that sits at the heart of New England's tradition of local democracy. The moderator is the person who ensures that every voice can be heard, every vote is counted fairly, and that the business of the town is conducted with order, patience, and respect. If you've attended town meeting in Bristol over the years, you know exactly what that has looked like. You know Ned's steady voice calling the meeting to order, followed by the ever thoughtful invocation. You know the careful way he explains the rules so that everyone, from longtime residents to someone attending their first meeting, can participate. And you know the calm ways he's handled those moments when debate gets a little spirited. 72 times he has done that over the years. Running a town meeting is not easy. That's both town and school. Running a town meeting is not easy. It requires knowledge of procedure, fairness, a sense of humor, and sometimes the patience of a saint. For more than 3 decades, Ned brought all of those qualities to the job. Year after year, meeting after meeting, he made sure that Bristol's most important civic tradition worked the way it's supposed to. But what's perhaps most remarkable about Ned's service is its consistency. 30-plus years means thousands of residents who have passed through town meeting under his guidance. It means generations of voters who have benefited from the steady hand that made it work. Public service at the local level rarely comes with headlines or recognition. It happens quietly. It happens because someone cares enough about their community to step forward and say, I'll do the work. In Ned's case, it was Sam Worthen who passed that torch to him with no thought that Ned wouldn't do it. Ned did that work for a long time, and he did it well. Because of people like Ned, towns like Bristol function the way they should. We gather together, we discuss, we sometimes disagree, we vote, and we move forward as a community. As I've heard him say more than once, Bristol always makes the right decision. That process only works when it's guided by someone who is trusted to be fair, thoughtful, and committed to the town as a whole. Ned earned that trust year after year. So today, as he steps away from this role after more than 3 decades, we want to say something that probably hasn't been said often enough during all those meetings. He ran so smoothly. Thank you. Thank you for your time, thank you for your patience, thank you for your fairness, and thank you for the quiet leadership that helped keep Bristol's town meeting tradition strong for 32 years. We are grateful for everything you've done. Thank you.
Sorry. Just a second. Thank you for those overly kind words, really. When I come from South Alexandria, and I started out and I moved here 50 years ago, but at the time I was full of ambition, full of energy, impatient, and I always had my eyes on trying to accomplish something. I always had a goal in mind. I was always looking forward. But I've come to this point in life, given my age and my circumstances, where now instead of looking forward, I'm kind of looking backwards, looking at what has been done instead of what I'm going to do. I look back and say, these are the things I could have done better. This is where I screwed up. These are the good things. And looking back. But now, looking backward, unfortunately. But the one thing I do know is that in my lifetime, I've been very fortunate. There's nobody that's been luckier, really, than me. and I have a lot of things, and I've accomplished some things. But I've got to tell you, when I ran for the Senate, how did I win that? I won just by a few votes, and the only reason I won out of 32 towns was because Bristol came out and supported me, worked hard and supported me. When I ran for the House, 4 towns, I probably would have lost in the other 3 towns. Bristol always came out and they supported me. My 3rd grade teacher, I wrote this thing on my report card to my parents and said, you know, Ned will do well. You just need to give him a lot of love. And I got to tell you that I have felt the love of this Bristol community over my lifetime. And I love Bristol. And I love all of you. And I thank you so much.
Just want to take a moment to a couple of thank yous. I want to say thank you to Rob Glassett. He's our outgoing selectman, and he will be behind this podium next year. So thank you, Rob. Much thanks to all the election staff and the volunteers. They do a tremendous amount of work that no one really sees, and it goes smoothly because of that. Thank you to the Budget Committee for all the time and energy you put into that. All of our town committees and volunteers, the stuff that we get done in town couldn't happen without that. Special thanks and shout out to Kate Overton. He's up there in the room. He's our media manager and does a great job all year long in all the meetings, and he does a fantastic job. And thank you to the town voters and for folks who came out today. And I'll let you. Okay, yeah, anybody who's been elected needs to come up here if they're here and get sworn in after the meeting.
And there's motion to adjourn. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. Thank you, everybody.